Zizhi Tongjian, Chronicles of Qin, 1. This video stays true to the original text, featuring readings in both classical and vernacular Chinese or English. This chronicle commences in the year of Bingu, 255 BC, and concludes in the year of Guyu, 228 BC, spanning a magnificent total of 28 years. In the 52nd year of the reign of King Zhouxiang of Qin, which happened to be the Binwu year, corresponding to 255 BC. Wang Ji, the governor of Hedong, was convicted of conspiring with various lords and was executed, with his body displayed in the public marketplace. Marquis Ying lived in constant gloom and heavy-heartedness from then on. When the king held court and let out a deep sigh, Marquis Ying stepped forward to ask for the reason. The king said heavily, "Now that the great Lord Wu is dead, and men like Sheng Anping and Wang Ji have all rebelled, we lack brilliant generals within and face numerous hostile states without. This is why I am worried." Marquis Ying was terrified and had no idea how to respond. Kaizai, a traveler from the state of Yan, heard of this and traveled west to enter the state of Qin. Kaizai first sent someone to declare to Marquis Ying, "Kaizai is the most eloquent man in the world. Once he meets the king, he will surely outwit you and seize your position as prime minister." Marquis Ying was furious and immediately sent someone to summon Kaizai. When Kaizai met with Marquis Ying, his demeanor was even more arrogant than rumored. Marquis Ying was displeased and rebuked him, saying, "You have publicly declared your desire to replace me as prime minister. Please, let me hear your reasoning." Kaizai sighed, "Alas, why do you realize this so late? In the sequence of the 4 seasons, those who achieve success must depart. Haven't you seen men like Lord Shang of Qin, Wu Qi of Chu, and senior official Sheng of Yu? What makes their fates worth aspiring to?" Marquis Ying retorted disingenuously, "Why not? These 3 men reached the pinnacle of righteousness and the ultimate extent of loyalty. A gentleman of high character may sacrifice his life to achieve eternal fame. In death, he holds no regrets." Kaizai countered, "When a person achieves greatness, do they not hope for total fulfillment? To have both one's life and reputation preserved, that is the highest achievement. To have a reputation worthy of emulation but to lose one's life is second best. To live on while one's name is disgraced is the lowest of outcomes." As for Lord Shang, Wu Qi, and senior official Sheng, in terms of their devotion and the immense achievements they made as ministers, they are indeed worth emulating. But what of Hong Yao and the Duke of Shou, were they not also loyal and sagely? If you compare what was admirable in those 3 men to the Duke of Shou and Hong Yao, who would be superior?" Marquis Ying said, "Well put." Kaizai continued, "That being so, your king is kind-hearted toward old acquaintances and does not betray his meritorious ministers. How does he compare to Duke Shao of Qin, the king of Chu, or the king of Yu?" He replied, "I cannot say for sure." Kaizai asked, "How do your achievements and abilities compare to those 3 men?" He answered, "I am not their equal." Kaizai spoke bluntly, "In that case, if you do not retire, your misfortune may well exceed that of those 3 men. As the saying goes, when the sun reaches its zenith, it begins to set, when the moon is full, it begins to wane. Advancing and retreating, expanding and contracting, and changing with the times, this is the path of the sage. Now that your grievances have been redressed and your debts of gratitude repaid, and your desires fulfilled, yet you have no plan for change personally, I fear for your safety." Marquis Ying then graciously invited Kaizai to be his honored guest and subsequently recommended him to the king. The king summoned Kaizai and spoke with him, and being greatly pleased, appointed him as a palace minister. Marquis Ying took the opportunity to resign, on the pretext of illness. Because the king was newly enamored with Kaizai's plans, he appointed him prime minister. After serving as prime minister for a few months, Kaizai was also dismissed. Lord Changshen of the state of Chu, a man of great power, appointed the eminent philosopher Sun Qing as the magistrate of Laoling, entrusting him with the welfare of the local people. This Sun Qing was a brilliant sage from the state of Shao, named Sun Kuang. He once engaged in a masterful debate on the art of war against Lord Lingwu before the royal court of King Xiucheng of Shao. With an expression of eagerness for wisdom, the king sincerely asked, "I would like to ask you both, what is the most essential principle for leading armies and conquering the enemy? Lord Lin Wu replied with great confidence, in leading an army, one must above grasp the timing and seasons of heaven, and below occupy the advantages and terrains of the earth. One must also keenly observe every move of the enemy, managing to launch an attack after them yet arrive at the critical point before them. This is the most exquisite art of warfare. Sun Qin listened and shook his head solemnly, speaking slowly but firmly, that is not so. That is not the fundamental truth. According to the ancient ways of the sages that I have studied, the core foundation of leading armies and engaging in battle lies entirely in unifying the will of the people. If a bow and its arrows are not properly harmonized, even a divine archer like Hou Yi would be unable to hit the target with precision. If the 6 horses pulling a carriage are not in harmony and do not pull in the same direction, even a master driver like Zhou Fu would be unable to reach a distant destination. If soldiers and civilians do not feel close to or support their monarch, then even sage kings like Tang of Shang and Wu of Shou, who followed the mandate of heaven, would certainly be unable to secure victory. Therefore, those who truly excel at making the people follow them with heartfelt devotion are the ones who truly understand how to lead armies and command in war. Thus, the core secret of war lies simply in winning the allegiance of the people, and nothing more. Lord Lin Wu, clearly unconvinced by these words, immediately retorted, that is not so, things are definitely not as you describe. What is most valued in war is the advantage of circumstances and profit, and what is most practiced are shifting tactics and deceptive maneuvers. Those who truly excel in military command act as swiftly as lightning and remain as dark and unfathomable as an abyss, such that no one can discern from where they will emerge. The great military geniuses Sun Wu and Wu Qi used these very deceptions and tactics to remain invincible throughout the land. Did they really need to wait for the common people to support them before going to war? Sun Qin remained composed and calmly shook his head again, saying, that is not so, what you see is merely the surface. What I am discussing is the army led by a commander of benevolence and righteousness. It is the grand ambition of a true sage king who aims for the welfare of all under heaven. But what you value and admire are nothing more than deceptive power plays, strategic schemes, and the greedy pursuit of advantageous circumstances and profit. An army of true benevolence and righteousness is absolutely impossible to deceive or destabilize through any cunning schemes. Those who can be deceived are typically the ones who have become negligent and arrogant, or whose defenses are exposed and vulnerable, or most importantly, where the hearts of the ruler and his ministers have drifted apart, resulting in a total lack of shared virtue. Therefore, if a deceitful man tries to trick another deceitful man, it is like a contest of cleverness against clumsiness, where victory depends purely on a stroke of luck. But attempting to use base deceits to trick a sage king as virtuous as Yao is like throwing an egg against a solid rock or thrusting one's finger into boiling water. The result would be like rushing into deep floods or raging fires. The moment one enters, they would be scorched to ash or utterly submerged, nothing more. Thus, in an army of true benevolence, the hearts of those above and below are joined as one, and the entire military exerts its strength toward a single purpose. The relationship of a minister to his ruler, or a subordinate to his superior, is like that of a son serving his father or a younger brother serving his elder brother. It is like the arms and hands instinctively guarding the head and eyes and shielding the chest and abdomen. It is a force of total integration and complete unity. Against such an army, whether you try to use deception to ambush them or attempt to startle them before attacking, the result is exactly the same. It simply will not work. Furthermore, even if a virtuous ruler governs a small state only 10 miles wide, the information and intelligence he commands will extend over a range of 100 miles. If he governs a state of 100 miles, his reach of intelligence will span 1,000 miles, and if he rules a vast territory of 1,000 miles, no stir within the 4 seas will escape his notice. He will surely be as keen and vigilant as if possessed of divine power, keeping the entire nation in harmony and united as an indivisible whole. Thus, an army of benevolence forms an indestructible combat formation when gathered and maintains orderly tactical ranks even when dispersed. When it extends, it is like the long blade of the legendary divine sword Moi, so sharp and chilling that anything daring to touch it would be instantly severed. When it concentrates its attack on a single point, it is like the incredibly sharp tip of the Moi sword. Any enemy standing in its way will inevitably crumble and be utterly routed. When they encamp or stand firm in formation, they are like a colossal, heaven-reaching rock. Anyone who tries to strike against them will only have their own edges shattered and be forced to retreat in shame. Furthermore, in the critical moment of life and death, whom can the ruler of a tyrannical state expect to accompany him to the battlefield? Those who are forcibly dragged onto the battlefield by him must surely be the poor common people under his rule. Once those people see our army of benevolence, they will rejoice as if meeting their long-lost parents, and they will cherish us deeply, like the fragrant scent of orchids and spices. Conversely, when they look back at their own rulers, they feel as if they are enduring the pain of burning and branding, or as if they are facing their mortal enemies. This is simple human nature. Even someone as wicked as Jia or a bandit as notorious as she, would they ever be willing to serve someone they loathe, only to harm those they truly love? Forcing the people to resist an army of benevolence is like compelling a person's children and grandchildren to murder their own parents with their own hands. It is simply impossible. Those people will surely come to us in droves to surrender and report on the enemy's situation. Under such circumstances, how could the enemy's petty tricks ever deceive us? Therefore, when a virtuous person governs a state, it becomes more brilliant and prosperous with each passing day, like the rising sun. Among the various lords of the world, those who recognize the situation and submit to the path of benevolence early will find security, while those who remain obstinate and submit late will find themselves in extreme danger. Those states that dare to oppose the path of benevolence will surely have their territories diminished, and those who openly betray the truth and act against it are destined to perish. As the Book of Odes says, King Wu set forth on his expedition, majestically wielding the bronze battle-axe of authority. His momentum was like a raging fire, and none in all the world dared to stand in his way. This is precisely what I mean. King Xiucheng and Lord Lin Wu exclaimed, "Excellent! May we ask about the army of a true king? What principles should it establish, and what conduct must it follow to be successful?" Xunzi replied, "Whenever a ruler is virtuous, the state is well ordered. Whenever a ruler is incompetent, the state falls into chaos. A state that upholds ritual and values righteousness will flourish. A state that neglects ritual and scorns righteousness will be in turmoil. Order brings strength, while chaos brings weakness. This is the very root of power. When those above are worthy of respect, those below can be effectively employed. When those above are not respected, those below cannot be relied upon. When the people are employable, the state is strong. When they are not, the state is weak. This is an eternal law governing the strength and weakness of nations. Those who cherish talented individuals are strong, while those who do not are weak. Those who love their people are strong, while those who do not are weak. Those whose decrees are trustworthy are strong, while those whose decrees are not are weak. Those who approach war with gravity are strong, while those who use force lightly are weak. Those whose authority stems from a single source are strong, while those with divided leadership are weak. These are the constant laws of strength and weakness. The people of Qi prize individual combat skills. Their method is to grant a measly amount of gold for every enemy head taken, offering no other substantial rewards. Such an army might suffice for minor skirmishes against weak opponents, but when faced with major battles or determined enemies, they will scatter and desert like frightened birds. They are like wild birds, shifting and wavering unpredictably. This is an army that leads to a state's ruin. No military force is weaker than this, as it is little different from hiring random laborers from a marketplace to fight. The Wuzu, elite infantry, of Wei are selected according to rigorous standards. They must wear triple-layered heavy armor, wield a crossbow with a 12-dan pole, carry 50 arrows, shoulder a halberd, wear a helmet and a sword, carry 2 days' rations, and march 100 li by midday. Once they pass the test, their entire household is exempted from taxes and granted prime land and housing. However, their physical strength declines after a few years, yet their privileges cannot be easily rescinded, making it difficult to renew the ranks. Thus, although Wei has vast territory, its tax revenue is meager. This is a military system that endangers the state. As for the people of Qin, their living environment is cramped and impoverished, and their rulers drive them with extreme severity. coercing them with power, squeezing them with hardship, enticing them with rewards, and terrifying them with punishments. The people are left with no way to seek benefit from their superiors except through battle. They ensure that merit and reward grow together. Capturing 5 enemy heads grants authority over 5 households. This is a method that keeps an army massive, powerful, and enduring for a long time. Thus, that Qin has been victorious for 4 generations is not due to luck, but to necessity. Therefore, the skilled combatants of Qi cannot face the Wuzhu of Wei, and the Wuzhu of Wei cannot face the elite warriors of Qin. Yet, the elite warriors of Qin cannot withstand the disciplined and regulated armies of Duke Huan and Duke Wen, and the disciplined armies of Huan and Wen cannot withstand the benevolent and righteous army of Tang and Wu. Should they meet, it would be like throwing scorched husks against a solid rock. All these aforementioned states possess armies that merely seek rewards and pursue profit. They are essentially based on mercenary and commercial principles, lacking the higher logic of honoring superiors, submitting to systems, or maintaining the highest integrity. If any of the feudal lords could subtly and profoundly implement discipline, they could rise up and easily eliminate all these other forces. Therefore, recruiting through lures, emphasizing power and deceit, and exalting profit are merely ways to slowly corrupt the military. Ritual, righteousness, and education are the means to unify an army's spirit. Thus, when deceit meets deceit, there is still a contest of skill, but when deceit meets a unified and moral force, it is like trying to topple Mount Tai with a small awl or a paring knife. Thus, when Tang and Wu executed Jie and Shou, they merely clasped their hands in salutation and gestured with their fingers, and even the most violent states rushed to serve them. Killing Jie and Shou was as simple as eliminating a solitary, abandoned individual. Thus, the Great Declaration says that solitary fellow Shou, referring to this principle. Therefore, if an army is perfectly unified on a grand scale, it can command the world. If unified on a small scale, it can master its neighbors. As for those armies recruited through lures, priding themselves on deceit and pursuing profit, their victory or defeat is unpredictable. They wax and wane, survive and perish, merely contending for temporary dominance. This is what is called a brigand army, and a true gentleman would never resort to such methods. King Xiucheng and Lord Lingwu exclaimed, "Excellent! In that case, may we ask what it takes to be a truly great general?" Xunzi replied calmly, "In terms of wisdom, nothing is greater than discarding doubt. In terms of action, nothing is greater than avoiding error. And in terms of outcomes, nothing is greater than having no regrets." If one reaches the state of having no regrets, that is the very limit of human effort, one cannot demand a guaranteed outcome from the heavens. Therefore, when establishing titles and issuing commands, one must be strict to ensure authority. When granting rewards or imposing punishments, one must be certain to maintain absolute trust. In encamping and storing supplies, be thorough and secure. In moving, launching, advancing, or retreating, be steady and grave, yet swift and rapid. When scouting the enemy and observing changes, go deep and remain hidden, and use multiple references to cross-verify information. When engaging the enemy in a decisive battle, carry out only what you are clear about, never act on what you doubt. These are called the 6 R's. Do not desire to lead while fearing dismissal. Do not become complacent in victory and forget the lessons of defeat. Do not overawe your subordinates while underestimating the enemy. Never see the advantage without considering the inherent danger. In all planning, be thorough. In spending resources, be liberal. These are called the 5 powers. There are 3 situations in which a general may refuse the ruler's commands. He may be killed, but he cannot be forced to lead his army into an untenable or fatal position. He may be killed, but he cannot be forced to launch an attack doomed to fail. He may be killed, but he cannot be forced to oppress or harm the innocent people. These are called the 3 Supremes. Whenever a general receives the ruler's trust to lead the army, and once the troops are organized, the officers are in their proper order, and all military affairs are on the right track, then even the ruler cannot sway him with personal whims, and the enemy cannot destabilize him with provocation. Such a leader is the supreme servant of the state. One must plan thoroughly before action and reinforce it with constant reverence. Be as cautious at the conclusion as at the start, maintaining consistency throughout. This is called great fortune. The success of all myriad matters surely lies in the reverence shown toward them. their failure surely lies in the negligence shown toward them. Therefore, when reverence overcomes negligence, there is good fortune, but when negligence overcomes reverence, there is destruction. When rational planning overcomes selfish desire, things proceed smoothly, but when desire overwhelms planning, disaster follows. Attack with the meticulousness of a defense, march with the alertness of a battle, and regard great achievements as mere strokes of luck. Revere planning without omission, revere tasks without neglect, revere officers without slight, revere the masses without oversight, and revere the enemy without disregard. These are called the 5 non-neglects. By prudently practicing these 6 arts, 5 powers, and 3 supremes, and by conducting oneself with reverence and without neglect, one becomes a peerless general of the world, attaining a wisdom that reaches the divine. Lord Lin Wu sincerely sighed, truly brilliant. May I further ask about the specific military system of an army that achieved the great king's cause? Xunzi said, in such an army, the general dies at his command drum, the charioteer dies at the reins, every officer dies for his duty, and every soldier dies within his rank. Advance at the sound of the drum and retreat at the sound of the gong. Absolute obedience to commands is the highest virtue, achieving merit is secondary. To advance when not commanded to do so is the sin as to retreat when not commanded, the guilt in both cases is exactly the sin. This army does not harm the elderly or the weak, nor does it trample crops. It does not mistreat those who surrender, nor does it pardon those who resist, and it does not hunt down those fleeing for their lives. All military executions are not intended for the common people, but for those who bring chaos and ruin to the people. However, if the commoners defend their oppressors, then they too are considered accomplices to the enemy. Thus, those who submit to the blade shall live, those who face the blade shall die, and those who flee for their lives shall be spared. Behold, Wei Zikai was unfettered in the state of Song after submitting, while the Shang general Chao Chuang was executed in the army for his resistance. As for the surrendered people of Shang, the methods used to nurture and support them were no different from those applied to the people of Shou. Thus, those nearby sing songs of joy, and those far away stumble in their haste to join. No matter how secluded or remote the state, all hasten to serve and find peace and happiness within it. All within the 4 seas become as one family, and all reachable people submit with conviction. This is what it means to be the master of mankind. The Book of Odes says, from the west and the east, from the south and the north, there is no soul that does not think of submitting. This is precisely the principle. A true king conducts righteous punishments but does not engage in indiscriminate warfare. He does not force an attack on a well-guarded city, nor does he strike at soldiers who resist out of duty. If the enemy's ruler and subjects are in harmony, the king even celebrates and rewards them. He does not slaughter cities, nor does he use covert or deceitful maneuvers. He does not station troops indefinitely, and his campaigns never exceed the proper seasons. Therefore, people suffering in chaos long for his governance. They no longer feel loyalty to their own rulers and instead pray for his arrival. Lord Lin Wu said, truly brilliant. Chun Shao asked Master Xunzi, saying, Teacher, when you discuss military affairs, you always regard benevolence and righteousness as the fundamental basis. A benevolent man loves others, and a righteous man follows reason. If so, then why is there any need for an army at all? Is it not true that the sole purpose of maintaining a military is for the sake of conquest and plunder? Xunzi replied, this is beyond your current understanding. A benevolent man loves people, and because he loves them, he hates to see them harmed by others. A righteous man follows reason, and because he follows reason, he hates to see the social order disrupted. The military is a tool to suppress violence and eliminate harm, not to engage in conquest. King Shao of Yan passed away, and his son, Xi, ascended to the throne. The people of Shou fled eastward. The Qin took possession of Shou's ritual treasures and forcibly relocated the Duke of West Shou to a small settlement called Danghu. The people of Chu relocated the remnants of the Lu state to Zhu and seized their entire territory. In the 53rd year of King Zhouxiang, the year of Di Wei, 254 BC, General Jiu of Qin attacked Wei and captured the city of Wuchen. The king of Han came to pay homage, and the entire state of Wei submitted to Qin's commands. In the 54th year of King Zhouyang, the year of Wushen, 253 BC, the king performed a grand sacrificial ritual to the supreme deity in the outskirts of Yong. The state of Chu relocated its capital to Jiuyang. In the 55th year of King Zhouyang, the year of Jiu, 252 BC, Lord Wei of Wei paid a visit to the state of Wei, but the people of Wei seized and killed him. They instead installed his brother, known as Lord Yuan. Lord Yuan was a son-in-law of the Wei state. In the 56th year of King Zhouyang, the year of Gengshu, 251 BC, in autumn, the king passed away, and King Xiuwan ascended to the throne. He honored the lady of Tang as the Empress Dowager Tang and appointed Zizhi as the crown prince. The people of Shao escorted the wife and son of Zizhi back to Qin. The king of Han, wearing mourning garments, came to offer his condolences and perform sacrificial rites. King Xi of Yan sent Li Fu to Shao to forge an alliance, bringing 500 pieces of gold as a gift for the king of Shao to host a banquet. Upon his return, Li Fu told the king of Yan, most of Shao's strong men perished at Chongping, and their orphans have yet to reach maturity. This is the perfect time to attack them. The king summoned Lord Lechen of Chengwo to consult him. Lechen replied, Zhao is a state surrounded by conflict on all sides. Its people are well versed in warfare. You must not attack. The king said, I will attack them with 5-1 odds. Lechen replied, it is still not possible. The king flew into a rage. The courtiers all agreed with the king. Consequently, he mobilized 2,000 chariots. Li Fu led the attack on Hao, and Qin attacked Dai. Jiang Chu said, we have just opened our borders and pledged friendship, sending 500 gold to toast their king. To attack them the moment our envoy returns is an ill omen. Our army will surely fail. The king ignored him and personally led a secondary force to follow the main army. Jiang Chu tugged at the king's ceremonial sash to stop him, but the king kicked him away in a rage. Jiang Chu wept and said, I am not doing this for myself, but for the sake of your majesty. When the Yan army reached Songzi, the famous Shao general Yan led a counterattack. He crushed Li Fu at Hao and defeated Qin and Yu Qin at Dai. The Shao army pursued the retreating troops for over 500 li and proceeded to besiege the capital of Yan. The people of Yan sued for peace, to which the Shao replied, if you want peace, Jiang Chu must be the one to negotiate it. The king of Yan had no choice but to appoint Jiang Chu as prime minister to negotiate the peace. Only then did the Shao army lift the siege and depart. Lord Pingyuan of Shao passed away. The Annals of King Xiuwan of Qin. In the first year of King Xiuwan, the year of Xinhai, 250 BC. In the 10th month of winter, on the day of Yihai, the king formally ascended to the throne. 3 days later, he passed away. His son Zizhi ascended to the throne, known as King Shuangxiang. King Shuangxiang honored Lady Huyang as Empress Dowager Huyang and his biological mother, Lady Xia, as Empress Dowager Xia. A general of the state of Yan launched a fierce assault on Liuqing in the state of Qi and successfully captured the stronghold after a decisive offensive. However, someone slandered the general before the king of Yan. Fearing for his life, the general chose to remain in Liuqing and dared not return to his homeland. Tiandan, the legendary general of Qi, personally led an army to retake the city. He besieged Liuqing for over a year, yet the city stubbornly held out against the assault. Lu Zonglian, a renowned scholar of the age, intervened by writing a letter. He tied it to an arrow and shot it into the city for the Yan general, proceeding to analyze the stakes of life and death. For your own sake, if you do not return to Yan, you must turn to Qi. Now, holding this isolated city alone while Qi's forces grow daily and Yan's relief never arrives, what exactly do you intend to do? After reading the letter, the Yan general wept for 3 days. He was torn and indecisive, unable to make a final resolution for his future. He wished to return to Yan, but the rift with his king was irreparable. He considered surrendering to Qi, but having killed and captured so many of their men, he feared he would be humiliated and punished after surrendering. Sighing deeply, he spoke with tragic heroism, Rather than letting others put me to the sword, I would rather use it upon myself." Then, he took his own life. Upon the general's death, Liucheng fell into chaos. Tiandan seized the opportunity to storm the city, finally recapturing it completely. Tiandan returned and praised Lu Zonglian's achievement to the king of Qi, who wished to bestow a noble title upon him. However, Zhonglian fled to the seaside and said, "Rather than enjoying wealth and status while being subservient to others, I would prefer to remain in poverty and obscurity, holding the world's vanities in contempt and following my own will freely." King Hanshi of Wei asked Zishan about the most eminent scholars in the world. Zishan replied, "The world lacks such perfect men today. However, if we speak of the next best, perhaps Lu Zonglian would be the one." The king disagreed, saying, "As for Lu Zonglian, his noble conduct is merely forced and artificial. It does not spring from his natural disposition." Zishan explained, "All men begin by practicing such conduct. If one practices it without ceasing, he becomes a gentleman. If he continues without changing, the habit merges with his being. Once habit and nature are one, it is then truly natural." The Annals of King Shuangxiang of Qin. In the first year of King Wangxiang, the year of Renzi, 249 BC, Lu Buwei was appointed as prime minister, leading the officials and presiding over the daily affairs of the state. The lord of Eastern Shou plotted with various lords to attack Qin. In response, the king sent Prime Minister Lu Buwei to lead an army to conquer and eliminate the state, relocating the lord of Eastern Shou to a small settlement called Yangrenju. Consequently, the ancestral sacrifices of Shou ceased forever. At its end, Shou possessed only 7 small settlements: Honan, Luoyang, Guchen, Peiying, Yanshi, Gang, and Goushi. The king entheved Prime Minister Lu Buwei with 100,000 households in the Hunan and Luoyang regions, bestowing upon him the title of Marquis Wenxin. General Meng Ao of Qin attacked the state of Han, capturing Qingdao and Xinyang, and subsequently established Sichuan Commandery. The state of Chu finally extinguished the state of Lu, relocating its last monarch, Lord Qing, to Bian and reducing him to the status of a commoner. In the second year of King Wangxiang, the year of Guqiu, 248 BC. In that year, a solar eclipse occurred. Meng Ao again launched an expedition against the state of Shao, pacifying the Taiyuan region and capturing 37 cities, including Yusi and Lanming. Lord Changshen of Chu said to the king, "The Weibei region borders Qi, and the situation there is critical. I request that it be turned into a commandery under direct control, and that I be entheved in the Jiangdong region instead." The king of Chu granted his request. Lord Changshen then built a city on the ancient ruins of the state of Wu to serve as his capital, constructing magnificent and opulent palaces. In the third year of King Wangxiang, the year of Jiayin, 247 BC, General Wang He of Qin attacked the various cities of Shandong and captured them all, establishing Taiyuan Commandery. The renowned Qin general Meng Ao led a powerful army to invade the state of Wei, swiftly capturing and occupying the strategic cities of Goudu and Ji with an unstoppable force. The Wei army suffered repeated crushing defeats under Qin's heavy assaults, leaving the king of Wei in deep distress. In this critical moment of survival, he finally cast aside his pride and sent envoys to Shao to invite back the long-absent Lord Xinling. Lord Xinling, well aware of the king of Wei's suspicious nature and fearing execution upon his return, adamantly refused to go back. He even sternly warned his retainers, "Anyone who dares to introduce the envoys from Wei to me shall be put to death." The retainers were intimidated by the lethal ban, and none dared speak. Only the hidden sages Mao Gong and Shui Gong took the initiative to see Lord Xinling, saying, "The reason you are so highly esteemed by the feudal lords is solely because of the existence of the state of Wei behind you. Now that Wei's life hangs by a thread, yet you ignore it. What if the Qin army captures Dalian and razes the ancestral temples of your forefathers? At that moment, how could you ever face the world again?" Before the speech was even finished, Lord Xinling's expression turned grave and alarmed. He immediately ordered his carriage prepared and rushed back to Wei in a state of high anxiety. Upon seeing Lord Xinling, the king of Wei grasped his hands and wept with emotion, immediately appointing him as the supreme commander of all the state's forces. Lord Xinling swiftly sent messengers to seek aid from the various lords. Upon hearing that the world-renowned Lord Xinling had emerged to lead the Wei military, the lords unhesitatingly dispatched their elite troops to rescue Wei. Lord Xinling commanded the coalition forces of 5 states Wei, Shao, Han, Chu, and Yan and dealt a crushing defeat to the Qing general Meng Ao south of the Yellow River. The once arrogant Meng Ao was forced to flee in disarray. Lord Xinling led his troops in a triumphant pursuit all the way to the Hango Pass, the gateway to Qin. He intimidated the Qin people with his formidable might at the gates before making a victorious return. A man from Anling named Suo Gao had a son serving as an official in Qin, who was appointed by the state to guard the city of Guan. Lord Xinling launched fierce attacks on the city of Guan but failed to capture it. Consequently, he sent a messenger to tell the Lord of Anling, "You must send Suo Gao to me. I intend to appoint him to the high rank of 5 grandees and have him serve as a distinguished commission officer." The Lord of Anling replied, "Anling is but a tiny, insignificant state, and I cannot force my people to do what they are unwilling to do. Please, messenger, go and invite him yourself." The Lord of Anling sent an official to lead the messenger to Suo Gao's residence. The messenger then conveyed Lord Xinling's recruitment order to Suo Gao. Suo Gao replied calmly, "Lord Xinling's high regard for me is nothing more than a desire to use me to capture the city of Guan. For a father to attack a city defended by his son is a deed that would be ridiculed by all the world. And if a son surrenders simply upon seeing his father, he betrays his sovereign. A father inciting his son to betrayal is surely not a value you would admire either. I beg to decline your offer with the utmost respect." The messenger reported these words faithfully to Lord Xinling. Furious, Lord Xinling dispatched another envoy to the Lord of Anling and threatened him fiercely. "The land of Anling is, in essence, a part of Wei. Now that I cannot capture Guan, the Qing army will eventually reach us, putting the very existence of our state in grave danger. I demand that you bind Suo Gao alive and deliver him to me. Should you fail to do so, I, Wei Wuji, will mobilize 100,000 troops to surround the walls of Anling." The Lord of Anling replied with righteous indignation, "My ancestor, Marquis Qing, was commanded by the secret decree of King Xiang of Wei to guard the city. The king even personally handed him the state's legal code. The opening of the code states, a son murdering his father or a minister murdering his sovereign is a capital crime never to be pardoned. Even in a general amnesty, those who surrender their cities or abandon their sons shall never be included. Now that Suo Gao chooses to decline high rank and wealth to preserve the bonds of father and son, you insist that I deliver him alive. This is clearly forcing me to betray King Xiang's decree and discard the state's legal code. Even at the cost of my life, I shall never do such a thing." Upon hearing this, Suo Gao sighed, "Lord Xinling is a man of fierce aggression and stubborn self-will. My lord's refusal will surely incense him and bring catastrophe upon our state. I have already preserved my honor and fulfilled my duty as a subject. How could I allow my own presence to bring the scourge of the Wei army upon my lord?" Thus, with resolute determination, he went to the messenger's quarters and cut his own throat before the envoy's eyes. Upon hearing of Suo Gao's death, Lord Xinling was filled with deep regret and shame. He immediately donned mourning garments, moved out of his main quarters, and sent an envoy to apologize to the Lord of Anling, saying, "I, Wei Wuji, am truly a base man, blinded by my own narrow schemes, and I have failed you in both trust and decorum. I beg to bow before you once more and sincerely confess my transgressions." The king of Qin sent spies with 10,000 pieces of gold to Wei to spread discord and undermine Lord Xinling's reputation. They specifically sought out the retainers of Jin Bai, the general Lord Xinling had killed years ago, and commanded them to tell the king of Wei. The lord has lived in exile abroad for 10 years, yet now that he holds military power again, the various lords follow his every command. The world now knows only of Lord Xinling and hears nothing of the king of Wei. The king of Qin also repeatedly sent messengers to congratulate Lord Xinling, asking publicly, "We heard you are about to become the king of Wei. Has the ceremony not taken place yet?" The king of Wei heard these slanders every day and gradually came to believe them. Consequently, he ordered someone else to replace Lord Xinling in commanding the army. Lord Xinling realized he had once again been discarded due to slander. Disheartened, he feigned illness to avoid the court and spent his days and nights numbing himself with wine and women. He passed away 4 years later from sorrow and excess. The king of Han personally came to offer his condolences. Lord Xinling's son considered this a great honor and reported it to the sage Zizhi. But Zizhi said sternly, "You must decline him according to ritual. The law of decorum states, when a neighboring ruler comes to offer condolences, the sovereign of the state should act as the master of the funeral. Since the king of Wei has not authorized you, you have no standing or title to receive the king of Han privately." Consequently, Lord Xinling's son followed this advice and declined the king's visit. In the 5th month, on the day of Bingwu, King Zhuangxiang of Qin passed away. The crown prince Sheng ascended to the throne. At the time, he was only 13 years old. Since the king was still young, all affairs of state were entrusted to Marquis Wenxin, Lu Buwei, whom Yingzong addressed as uncle. At this time, the region of Jinyang, which formerly belonged to Shao but was now under Qin rule, erupted in rebellion. This was the first year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Yimou, corresponding to 246 BC. General Meng Ao led the army and swiftly suppressed the rebellion in the Jinyang region. To exhaust Qin's resources and stall its eastward expansion, the state of Han dispatched the hydraulic engineer Sheng Guo to infiltrate Qin as a spy. Sheng Guo proposed excavating the Jing River from Mount Shong to build a canal that would flank the North Mountains and flow east into the Luo River. Midway through construction, the plot was uncovered, and the people of Qin wanted to execute Sheng Guo. Sheng Guo calmly defended himself. "I have indeed extended Han's life for a few years, but once the canal is finished, it will yield benefits for Qin for 10,000 generations. The king thus pardoned him and let him finish it." The silt-rich waters were led to irrigate over 40,000 qing of saline soil, raising yields to 1 shong per mu and making Guanshong increasingly prosperous. In the 2nd year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Bingchen, 245 BC, General Piao Gong led his troops to attack Wan, beheading 30,000 enemy soldiers. Zhao appointed Lian as acting prime minister to invade Wei, successfully capturing Fanyang. King Xiucheng of Shao died and was succeeded by King Douxiang, who sent Lord Wuxiang, Yu Qing, to replace Lian Po. Outraged, Yan Po attacked Yu Qing, who fled. Subsequently, Yan Po was forced to flee to the state of Wei. After a long time, Wei failed to make use of Yan Po. As Zhao's armies were repeatedly trapped by Qin, the king of Shao considered recalling him. Lian Po also yearned to serve Shao again. The king thus sent an envoy to see if he was still fit for command. Guo Kai, a rival of Yan Po, bribed the envoy with much gold, instructing him to slander Lian Po to the king. When meeting the envoy, Yan Po ate a dough of rice and 10 catties of meat in one meal, then donned armor and mounted his horse to prove his fitness. The envoy returned and reported, "General Lian Po is old but still has a good appetite. However, while sitting with me, he had to relieve himself 3 times in a short while." The king of Shao concluded that Lian Po was indeed too old and did not recall him. The people of Chu secretly sent someone to fetch him. While serving as a general for Chu, Lian Po achieved little. He sighed, "I long to lead the men of Shao." He eventually died in Shouchun. In the 3rd year of the first emperor, the year of Dingxi, 244 BC, a severe famine occurred. The Qin general Meng Ao invaded Han once more, seizing 12 cities. The king of Shao appointed Li Mu as a general to attack Yan, capturing Wusui and Fangqing. Li Mu was a brilliant general on Zhao's northern border, having long been stationed in Dai and Yemen to defend against the Xiongnu. He was authorized to appoint officials at his discretion, with market taxes flowing into his headquarters for military expenses, and he slaughtered several oxen daily to feast his troops. He trained his men in riding and archery, kept strict watch over signal fires, and employed many spies, ordering, if the Xiongnu invade, withdraw quickly into the fortresses. Anyone who dares to attempt capture of the enemy shall be executed. Whenever the Xiongnu invaded, the signal fires were lit promptly, and the troops would withdraw into the fortresses without fighting. This went on for several years without any loss of men or property. The Xiongnu believed Li Mu was cowardly, and even the Shao border soldiers thought their general was weak. The king rebuked him, but Li Mu remained unchanged. Outraged, the king replaced him. For over a year, the new general frequently attacked but was unsuccessful, suffering heavy losses and preventing the border people from farming or herding. The king begged Li Mu to return, but he feigned illness. When forced, Li Mu said, "If I am to serve, I must do as before, only then do I dare take the command." The king agreed. Li Mu arrived at the border and resumed his old ways. 4 years the Xiongnu gained nothing and still deemed him cowardly. The soldiers, rewarded daily without fighting, all yearned for battle. Li Mu then selected 1,300 chariots, 13,000 horses, 50,000 elite warriors, and 100,000 archers, organizing them for large-scale military drills. Li Mu intentionally filled the fields with livestock and people. When a small Xiongnu force invaded, Li Mu feigned defeat and abandoned dozens of men to them. Hearing this, the Changyu led a massive force to invade. Li Mu employed ingenious formations, flanking them with left and right wings, and crushed them. They slew over 100,000 Xiongnu horsemen, destroyed the Zhanglan, crushed the Donghu, and subdued the Linhu. The Changyu fled, and for over a decade, they dared not approach Zhao's borders. Prior to this time, there were 7 civilized states in the world that observed formal etiquette and dress, and 3 of them bordered the Rong and the nomadic tribes. West of Longshan, Qin faced the Mianzhu, Ganrong, and Zhai tribes. To the north of Qishan, Liangshan, and the Jing and Qi rivers, lived the Yisu, Dali, Wushi, and Xuyan tribes. To the north of Shao were the Linhu and Lufan tribes, while to the north of Yan were the Donghu and Shangrong. They lived scattered among valleys, each with their own lords and chiefs. Tribes clustered in various places numbered over 100, yet none were able to unify with one another. Later, the Yisu built walls to defend themselves, but Qin gradually encroached upon them, until during King Hui's reign, 25 Yisu cities were captured. During King Shao's reign, Empress Dowager Xian lured the king of Yisu and had him killed at Dongquan Palace, then dispatched troops to conquer and extinguish the Yisu state. Qin began constructing the Great Wall in the Longxi, Beidi, and Shang commanderies to ward off the Hu nomads. King Wulin of Shao defeated the Linhu and Lufan to the north, built a wall extending from Dai along the foot of the Yinshan Mountains to the high pass, and established the Yongsheng, Yanmen, and Dai commanderies. Later, the Yan general Qin Kai served as a hostage among the nomads, and they trusted him deeply. Upon returning, he launched a surprise attack on the Donghu and crushed them, forcing them to retreat more than 1,000 li. Yan also built a wall stretching from Zouyang to Xiangping, and established the Shangdu, Yuyang, Yubiping, and Liaodong commanderies to defend against the nomads. It was not until the end of the Warring States period that the Xiongnu began to grow powerful. In the 4th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Wu, 243 BC. In spring, Meng Ao invaded Wei and captured Yang and Yugui. In the 3rd month, the campaign was concluded. The Qin hostage returned from Shao, and the Shao crown prince departed and returned to his own country. In the 7th month, locusts swarmed and plagues broke out. A decree was issued that any commoner who contributed 1,000 den of grain would be granted 1 rank of nobility. King Anshi of Wei passed away, and his son, King Jimin, ascended to the throne. In the 5th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Jiwei, 242 BC. Meng Ao invaded Wei and captured 20 cities, including Suanzhao, Yan, Su, Changping, Yongqiu, and Shanyang. The Dong commandery was established for the first time. Initially, Zhu Xian was on good terms with Peng Wang while in Zhao. Later, he went to serve in the state of Yan. The king of Yan saw that Shao was repeatedly besieged by Qin and weakened, and hearing that Lian Pa had left and Peng Wang was now the general, he wished to attack Shao by taking advantage of its exhaustion. The king consulted Zhu Haixan, who replied, Peng Yuan is easily dealt with. Thereupon, the king appointed Zhu Haixan as general to invade Zhao. Peng Yuan of Shao defended against the invasion, killing Zhu Haixan and capturing 20,000 troops of the Yan army. The various lords were distressed by Qin's ceaseless attacks and conquests. In the 6th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Gengshen, 241 BC, the states of Chu, Shao, Wei, Han, and Wei formed a coalition to attack Qin. The king of Chu served as the head of the alliance, with Lord Chongshun in actual command. They first captured Shouling. Upon reaching Hangou Pass, the Qin army emerged to strike. The armies of the 5 states were all defeated and fled. The king of Chu blamed Lord Chongshun for the defeat, and as a result, Lord Chongshun became increasingly estranged from the king. Zhu Ying of Guanjin said to Lord Chongshun, Everyone considers Chu strong, yet under your command, it appears weak. But to me, that is not the case. During the previous king's reign, Qin was friendly with Chu and did not attack for 20 years. Why was that? For Qin to cross the fortress of Minyi to attack Chu was inconvenient. To borrow a path from the two shows and attack Chu with Han and Wei at its back was impossible. Now it is different. Wei is on the brink of ruin and cannot hold on to Su and Yanling. It has ceded them to Qin. Now, Qin's troops are only 160 li away from Chun. From what I observe, I see daily conflict between Qin and Chu henceforth. Thereupon, Chu abandoned Chun and moved its capital to Shouchun, renaming it Ying. Lord Chongshun went to his fief in Wu but continued to perform his duties as prime minister. Qin then captured Chaoga from Wei and Puyang from Wei. Lord Yuan of Wei led his kinsmen to settle in Yuan, using the mountains as a barrier to help safeguard Wei's Henan region. It was the 7th year of the reign of the first emperor, the year of Xinyu in the sexagenary cycle, which corresponds to 240 BC in the historical record. The Qin army launched a massive expedition against the state of Wei, swiftly capturing and occupying the territory of Ji. Empress Dowager Xia, the biological mother of King Zhuangxiang and grandmother of Yingzeng, passed away this year. Meng Ao, the illustrious Qin general who had struck terror into the feudal lords with his military exploits, passed away in this very year. Then came the 8th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Renshu, which was 239 BC. Out of necessity, the state of Wei ceded the city of Yi to the state of Shao, attempting to secure a temporary peace or some form of political alliance. King Huanghe of Han passed away this year, and his son ascended the throne, becoming the final monarch of Han, known as Kingdom of Han. Time flowed to the 9th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Guhai, which was 238 BC. The Qin army once again bared its sharp claws against Wei, successively capturing the cities of Yuan and Pu. In the 4th month of summer, when nature should have been lush, an unexpected and piercing cold struck, and many innocent commoners froze to death. King Zeng of Qin traveled to the ancient capital of Yong and spent the night there. On the day of Jiu, King Zeng held his grand coronation and coming-of-age ceremony. He personally strapped on his sword, symbolizing his adulthood and the formal beginning of his glorious era of personal rule. General Yang Duanha was ordered to attack Wei and successfully captured the region of Yanshi. Initially, when King Zeng ascended the throne at a young age, the Empress Dowager Zhao Ji frequently engaged in private, illicit affairs with Lu Buwei, the Marquis of Wenxin. As the king grew older and more mature, Lu Buwei grew increasingly fearful that their illicit affair would be discovered and bring disaster upon him. Thus, he devised a ruse, falsely claiming that his retainer Lao Ai had been castrated, and presented him to the Empress Dowager as a fake eunuch. The Empress Dowager deeply favored Lao Ai, even secretly bearing him 2 sons. Furthermore, she titled him the Marquis of Chongxin and granted him the Taiyuan region as his domain, allowing him to decide all state affairs. At that time, numerous opportunists flocked to Lao Ai, vying to become his retainers in staggering numbers. Among the king's attendants, there were those who clashed with Lao Ai and indignantly reported that he was not, in fact, a eunuch. The king immediately ordered officials to investigate and prosecute him. Lao Ai fell into extreme panic. Audaciously, he forged the king's royal seal to mobilize troops, plotting to attack Qingyan Palace, where the king resided, and initiate an armed rebellion. The king responded calmly, dispatching Prime Minister Lord Chongping and Lord Chongwen to mobilize the army and counterattack. The two sides engaged in fierce street battles in the capital, Xianyang, where the Qin army beheaded hundreds of Lao Ai's rebels. Lao Ai fled in disarray after his defeat but was eventually captured alive by the Qin army. In the 9th month of that autumn, the king issued a devastating punishment, the extermination of Lao Ai's entire extended family across 3 generations. Lao Ai's accomplices were all subjected to the gruesome punishment of being torn apart by chariots, and their entire clans were wiped out. Those retainers with lesser crimes were exiled to the remote Shu region, totaling more than 4,000 households. The king confined Empress Dowager Zhaoji to Baiyang Palace in Yong and mercilessly executed the 2 children she had borne from her illicit affair with Lao Ai. In a towering rage, the king issued a national decree: anyone who dares to advise me regarding the Empress Dowager shall be executed, their limbs severed and piled high beneath the gates of the palace. Unbelievably, 27 upright officials, who dared to advise the king despite the threat, were killed, and their remains were piteously piled beneath the palace gates. At this juncture, the strategist Mao Jiao from the state of Qi took the initiative to present his credentials, requesting an audience with the king to offer advice regarding the Empress Dowager. The king sent someone to sneer at him: "Have you not seen the mountain of corpses piled beneath the palace gates?" Mao Jiao replied composedly, "I have heard that there are 28 constellations in the heavens. Currently, 27 men have died. I have come today simply to complete the number and fulfill the cycle of 28. I am not one who fears death." The messenger rushed inside to report these words to the king. Meanwhile, those from the same hometown as Mao Jiao, who shared meals with him, were so terrified that they scrambled to pack their belongings and fled to hide from the king's wrath. The king flew into a violent rage, shouting, "This man is openly defying me. Bring him in and prepare the great cauldron to boil him alive. Let's see how he'll ever be fit to be piled beneath the palace gates then." Hand on his sword, the king sat there consumed by fire, so enraged that white foam was actually bubbling from the corners of his mouth. The messenger brought Mao Jiao in, but he walked slowly and steadily before the king. He solemnly performed 2 deep bows, rose, and spoke eloquently: "I have heard that those who cherish life should not shun the mention of death, and those who rule a state should not shun the mention of its downfall. Those who avoid the subject of death can never attain true longevity, and those who avoid the subject of downfall can never preserve the long-term peace of a state. The profound truths of life, death, survival, and downfall are exactly what a wise monarch like yourself should be most eager to understand. Would your majesty care to hear my perspective?" Intimidated by this grand narrative, the king restrained his anger and asked, "What exactly do you mean by that?" Mao Jiao spoke bluntly and accused him. "Your majesty is currently engaging in many insane and irrational behaviors that defy all ethics. Are you truly unaware of this? You executed your pseudo-father through dismemberment by chariots, beat your 2 biological brothers to death in sacks, exiled your own mother to Yong, and brutally murdered your loyal counselors. I fear that even the infamous tyrants Jie and Shou never reached such a level of absurdity. If the people of the world hear of these deeds, their hearts will utterly crumble, and no one will ever look toward or submit to Qin again. Personally, I fear for the very survival of your majesty's empire. I have spoken my mind." Having finished, Mao Jiao with a resolute expression stripped off his robes and lay prostrate upon the executioner's block, closing his eyes to await the moment of his death. Completely awed by Mao Jiao's wisdom and courage, the king's anger vanished in an instant. He hurried down from his throne, personally helped Mao Jiao up, and said, "Please rise, master, and dress yourself. I am now sincerely willing to follow your guidance." Thereupon, the king formally granted Mao Jiao the noble rank of senior minister, bestowing upon him immense honor and trust. The king personally drove the carriage, leaving the honored left side vacant as he traveled to Yong to welcome back Empress Dowager Zhaoji. Together, mother and son returned to the capital, Xianyang, restoring their former bond as if the rift had never occurred. King Kali of Chu had no heirs, a fact that caused Lord Chongshun great anxiety. He sought out numerous women reputed for their fertility and presented them to the king, yet despite these efforts, no child was ever born. A man from Shou named Li Yuan brought his sister, intending to present her to the king of Chu. However, upon hearing that the king was incapable of siring children, he feared she would eventually lose favor. Thus, he sought to become a retainer in the household of Lord Chongshun. Soon after, Li Yuan requested a leave of absence to return home, but he intentionally returned past the deadline. When Lord Chongshun saw him, he inquired about the reason for the delay. Li Yuan said, "The king of Qi sent someone to seek my sister's hand in marriage. I spent time drinking with his messenger, and that is why I missed the deadline." Lord Chongshun asked, "Have the betrothal gifts been accepted?" Li Yuan replied, "Not yet." Consequently, Lord Chongshun took her into his own household. Before long, she became pregnant with Lord Chongshun's child. Seeing that the time was right, Li Yuan instructed his sister to persuade Lord Chongshun, and she spoke to him privately. "The king of Chu honors and favors you more than even his own brothers. You have been the prime minister for over 20 years, yet the king remains childless. Upon his eventual passing, he will surely have no choice but to install one of his brothers as the next ruler. A new king will naturally favor his own trusted associates. How, then, could you possibly expect to maintain your current influence? And it is not merely a matter of losing your status. You have held great power for so long that you have undoubtedly caused offense to the king's brothers. If one of them should rise to the throne, disaster will surely fall upon you personally. Now I am pregnant, and no one knows of it yet. I have not been in your company long. If you use your immense influence to present me to the king, he is so desperate for an heir that he will surely favor me. If, by the grace of heaven, I bear a son, then it is your own flesh and blood who will become king. The entire state of Chu would effectively be yours. Is that not infinitely better than facing the unpredictable calamities that otherwise await you?" Lord Chongshun was deeply impressed by her words and agreed completely. He moved Li Yuan's sister out of his house, settled her in a discreet residence, and subsequently recommended her to the king of Chu with great solemnity. The king summoned her to the palace and showed her great favor. She eventually gave birth to a son, whom the king joyfully installed as the crown prince. Li Yuan's sister became the queen, and Li Yuan himself rose to a position of great prestige and influence. However, he lived in constant fear that Lord Chongshun might one day, whether accidentally or intentionally, reveal the secret of their grand deception. Therefore, he secretly recruited and trained a group of suicide squads, intending to assassinate Lord Chongshun to silence him forever. In the capital, quite a few people had already caught wind of this plot. When the king of Chu fell gravely ill, the strategist Shu Ying sensed danger and said to Lord Chongshun, "In this world, there are unexpected blessings that fall from the heavens, just as there are unforeseen calamities that strike without warning. You are living in an unpredictable age, serving a monarch whose life hangs in the balance. How can you afford to be without someone who can handle the unforeseen for you?" Lord Chongshun asked with confusion, "What exactly do you mean by an unexpected blessing?" Shu Ying replied, "You have governed Chu for over 20 years. Though your title is prime minister, you are effectively the king. Now the king is terminally ill and could pass away at any moment. Upon his death, you could act as regent to the young heir and hold total control over the state until he reaches maturity. Or you could simply ascend the throne yourself and rule as king. This is what I call an unexpected blessing." Lord Chongshun then asked, "And what of the unexpected calamity?" Shu Ying replied gravely, "Li Yuan takes no part in governing the state, yet he is your mortal enemy. He holds no military rank, yet he has been maintaining private assassins for a very long time. As soon as the king dies, Li Yuan will surely be the first to enter the palace. Using the queen's influence, he will seize power and then have you killed to silence you forever regarding the secret. This is what I call an unexpected calamity." Lord Chongshun asked further, "And who is the unexpected person?" Shu Ying replied firmly, "If you appoint me as your guard, I will be there when the king passes. Should Li Yuan attempt to enter the palace first, I will kill him for you. A person like me, Who can resolve such a crisis and turn the tide of fate is an unexpected person. Lord Chongjian replied, "Let the matter drop, sir. Li Yuan is a weak and insignificant man, and I have always been kind to him. He depends on my favor. How could he possibly resort to such madness and betrayal?" Shu Ying realized his advice would not be followed. Fearing for his own life, he fled and went into hiding. Only 17 days later, the king of Chu indeed passed away. Just as Shu Ying had predicted, Li Yuan was the first to enter the palace, concealing his deadly assassins behind the thicket gate. When Lord Chongjian entered the palace gates, unaware of the danger, the hidden assassins sprang from both sides and stabbed him to death. They cut off his head and tossed it outside the thicket gate. Immediately afterward, Li Yuan dispatched officials to arrest and execute Lord Chongjian's entire family. The crown prince ascended to the throne, becoming King Yu of Chu. Yang Xiong wrote in his book Fei Yan, someone once asked, "Did the famous four lords Xinli, Pingyuan, Manchang, and Chongjian truly bring any benefit to their respective states?" The answer was, when the sovereigns lost their grip on governance and treacherous ministers usurped the nation's destiny, how could there be any true benefit? Because the king of Qin considered the immense service the Marquis of Wenxin had rendered to the late King Shuangxiang, he could not bring himself to have him executed just yet. It was the 10th year of the reign of the first emperor, the year of Jiazi in the sexagenary cycle, which corresponds to 237 BC. In the 10th month of winter, Lu Buwei, the Marquis of Wenxin, was dismissed from his post as prime minister and left the capital to reside in his fief in Honan. The royal clan and high officials deliberated and said, "Those from the other states who come to serve in Qin are merely wandering spies acting on behalf of their own lords. We request that all of them be expelled without exception." Consequently, a massive search was conducted, and the order to expel foreign guests was issued. Li Si, a native of Chu serving as a visiting minister, was among those to be expelled. As he set out to leave, he submitted a memorial. In the past, Duke Mu sought talented men. He recruited Yu Yu from the Rong tribes in the west, obtained Bai Li Xi from Wang in the east, and welcomed Jian Shu from the state of Song. He also sought Pai Bo and Gong San Shi from Jin. By doing so, he annexed 20 states and achieved hegemony over the western Rong. Duke Shao employed the laws of Shangyang, causing the feudal lords to submit in friendship, and the state has remained well-ordered and strong to this day. King Hui adopted the strategies of Zhang Yi, which dissolved the alliance of the 6 states and compelled them to serve Qin. King Shao acquired Fan Zhu, who strengthened the royal house and curtailed the influence of private factions. These 4 rulers all relied on the achievements of foreign guests. From this perspective, how have these guests ever failed Qin? Now, beautiful women, music, pearls, and jade are not produced in Qin, yet many of them are used and enjoyed by your majesty. Yet, when it comes to employing people, you do otherwise, without asking about their competence or discerning their character. You dismiss anyone who is not from Qin and expel all those who are visiting ministers. This shows that you value beauty, music, pearls, and jade, while you disregard the people who truly matter. I have heard that Mount Tai does not reject any soil, and thus it can achieve its greatness. The rivers and seas do not pick and choose among fine streams, and thus they can attain their depth. A true king does not turn away the masses, and thus his virtue shines forth. This is why the 5 emperors and the 3 kings were invincible. Now you are abandoning the common people to enrich rival states and turning away guests to enhance the power of the other lords. This is what is called lending weapons to the enemy and providing provisions to brigands. The king then recalled Li Si, restored his office, and abolished the order to expel foreign guests. Li Si had already reached Li when he turned back. The king eventually adopted Li Si's strategies, secretly sending eloquent orators with gold and jade to lobby the feudal lords. Famous scholars among the lords who could be bought with money were courted with generous gifts. Those who refused were assassinated with sharp swords. After undermining the trust between their monarchs and ministers, he sent brilliant generals to follow up. Within a few years, he finally unified all under heaven. In the 11th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Ichou, 236 BC, The people of Shao invaded Yan and captured Liyang. Before the fighting between Shao and Yan had ceased, the generals Wang Jian, Wang Yi, and Yang Duan had invaded Shao, attacking Yi and capturing 9 cities. Wang Jian attacked Aiwu and Liuyang, while Wang Yi captured Yi and Anyang. King Douxiang of Shao passed away, and his son Qian ascended the throne as King Youmiu. His mother was an entertainer who was favored by King Douxiang. The king abolished his legitimate son Jia and established Qian as his heir. Qian had long been notorious throughout the country for his lack of virtue. Lu Buwei had resided in his fief for over a year, and the messengers and guests sent by various lords formed a continuous line on the road, all seeking to invite him to serve them. The king feared that Lu Buwei might start a rebellion, so he sent him a letter that read, "What merit have you earned for Qin to be enfeoffed in Honan with 100,000 households? What kinship do you have with the Qin house to be addressed as uncle? Move your family and relocate to Shu immediately." Lu Buwei realized that the pressure was mounting and feared he would eventually be executed. In the 12th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Bingyin, 235 BC, Lu Buwei committed suicide by drinking poison and was buried in secret. Those of his retainers who attended his funeral were all expelled and exiled. Furthermore, the king decreed, from this day forth, anyone who controls state affairs in an unprincipled manner like Lao Ai or Lu Buwei will have their property confiscated and their clans registered for punishment. Take this as a warning. Yang Xiong wrote in his Feiyan. Someone asked, was Lu Buwei wise? He used a human being to trade for goods, power and wealth. Yang Xiong replied, who says Lu Buwei was wise? He traded his entire clan for a state. Lu Buwei was a thief, merely a leader among those who burrow through walls. As for those who burrow through walls, I have seen them steal a few measures of grain, but I have never seen one seize something as grand as Luoyang. From the 6th month onward, it did not rain until the 8th month. Qin mobilized the troops of 4 commanderies to assist Wei in attacking Chu. It was the 13th year of the reign of the first emperor, the year of Ding Mao, which corresponds to 234 BC in the historical record. The Qin general Huang Yi launched a fierce invasion against the state of Shao, dealing a crushing defeat to the Shao general Hu Sha at Pingyang. His forces beheaded a staggering 100,000 soldiers and slew Hu Sha himself. In this crisis, the king of Shao appointed the legendary Li Mu as great general. They engaged the enemy again at Yan and Feixia, where the Qin army suffered a disastrous defeat, forcing Huang Yi to flee back to Qin in disgrace. To reward Li Mu's extraordinary achievement in saving the state from the brink of ruin, the king of Shao formally bestowed upon him the title of Lord Wuwen. In the 14th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Wuchen, which was 233 BC, the Qin general Huang Yi returned with a vengeance, leading his cavalry to invade Zhou once more and successfully capturing the fortresses of Yan, Pingyang, and Wuchen. The king of Han, terrified by Qin's overwhelming might, voluntarily offered his territory and royal seal, humbly requesting to become a vassal of Qin. He then dispatched the brilliant thinker Han Fei on a diplomatic mission to the Qin court. This Han Fei was a prince of the royal house of Han. He was naturally gifted and deeply mastered the profound doctrines of legalism, logic, and the arts of statecraft. Witnessing the daily decline and weakening of Han, he was filled with concern and repeatedly submitted memorials to advise the king to reform. However, the mediocre king of Han utterly ignored his counsel and failed to employ him. Consequently, Han Fei detested that governance failed to seek and employ the virtuous, instead elevating pretentious and dissolute vermin to positions superior to those who achieved actual merit and practical results. In times of ease, the state pampers those with mere reputations. In times of crisis, it calls upon armored warriors. Thus, those supported by the state are not the ones used, and those used are not the ones who were supported. Grieved that the upright and honest were intolerable to corrupt and crooked officials, he observed the historical cycles of success and failure. He authored 56 chapters, including solitary frustration, 5 vermin, and difficulties of persuasion, totaling over 100,000 words. The king of Qin heard of Han Fei's brilliance, and upon reading his works, was so deeply impressed that he yearned to meet this unparalleled genius in person. Acting as the envoy of Han Fei submitted a memorial to the king of Qin, saying, "Currently, Qin spans thousands of miles and commands 1,000,000 troops. In terms of strictness of command and fairness of reward and punishment, no state in the world can equal you. I risk my life to seek an audience with your majesty, to offer the strategic means to shatter the anti-Qin alliances of the other states. If your majesty follows my advice and it fails to dissolve the alliances, annex Shao, eliminate Han, subdue Chu and Wei, or win over Qi and Yan. If the name of a hegemon is not achieved and the surrounding lords do not pay homage, then let my head be struck off and displayed as a warning to all who would dare advise your majesty with disloyalty." The king was delighted with Han Fei but had not yet formally employed him. Li Si, jealous of Han Fei's talent and favor, slandered him to the king. "Han Fei is, after all, a prince of the royal house of Han. Now that your majesty seeks to annex all the lords, Han Fei's ultimate loyalty will surely remain with Han, not Qin. This is simply human nature. If your majesty does not employ him now and allows him to return home, you are merely inviting future disaster. It would be better to execute him on some legal pretext." The king agreed with Li Si and ordered that Han Fei be imprisoned and investigated by the authorities. Fearing a change of heart, Li Si preemptively sent poison to Han Fei, commanding him to commit suicide immediately. Han Fei wished to appeal his case to the king in person, but he was denied any access. Later, the king felt a wave of regret and sent word to pardon him, but by the time the messenger arrived, Han Fei was already dead. Yang Xiong wrote in his Fei Yan, "Someone asked, Han Fei authored difficulties of persuasion, yet he ultimately died because of the very difficulty of persuading a ruler. Is this not a profound contradiction?" Yang Xiong replied, "Difficulties of persuasion was likely the very reason for his death." The questioner asked, "How so?" "A true gentleman acts according to ritual and desists according to righteousness. If his ideas align with the ruler's, he moves forward, if not, he withdraws. He is steadfast and never frets over his counsel being rejected. If one fears that his persuasion will fail, he will eventually stoop to any extreme or unscrupulous measure to succeed." Someone asked, "Was it wrong for Han Fei to worry his advice might not be taken?" Yang Xiong replied, "If your advice does not stem from the righteous way, then there is cause for worry. But if you follow the way and are still rejected, there is no reason for anxiety." Your servant Sima Guan comments, "I have heard that a gentleman extends his love for his own kin to the kin of others, and his love for his own state to the states of others." Now Han Fei devised strategies for Qin, and his very first proposal was the destruction of his own ancestral state, all to market his theories to the king. Such a crime truly makes him unworthy of life. Why should anyone feel pity for him? In the 15th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Jiasai, which was 232 BC, the king launched a massive expedition against Shao, splitting his forces into two routes, one striking Yi and the other Taiyuan, successively capturing Lemeng and Fangwu. However, upon encountering their nemesis Li Mu, the Qin forces were once again stymied and forced to withdraw. In earlier years, Crown Prince Dan of Yan had been a hostage in Shao, where he developed a close friendship with Yingzheng, who was also a hostage there at the time. When Yingzheng ascended the throne, Prince Dan became a hostage in Qin. Far from honoring their old bond, the king treated him with utter coldness and disrespect. Infuriated, Prince Dan fled Qin and returned to Yan. It was the 16th year of the reign of the first emperor, the year of Zhengu in the sexagenary cycle, which corresponds to 231 BC. The state of Han, trembling under Qin's immense pressure, was forced to cede the fertile land of Nanyang. In the 9th month of that year, Qin dispatched elite troops to formally take possession of the territory from Han. The people of Wei, sensing the approaching doom, also bowed in submission and ceded a portion of their territory to Qin in hopes of securing a brief and fragile peace. A powerful earthquake struck the region of Dai in Shao, extending west from Lexu and north to Pinyin. More than half of the grand terraces, houses, and walls were destroyed, and the earth split open into a massive chasm 130 paces wide. In the 17th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Xin Wei, which was 230 BC, General King of Qin led his army in an unstoppable offensive that extinguished the state of Han, capturing King and of Han alive. He then incorporated all of Han's former territories into Qin, establishing the Yinchuan Commandery. The Honorable Empress Dowager Huiyang, a figure of great influence within the Qin court, passed away in the same year. An extraordinarily severe famine broke out across the state of Shao. The fields lay desolate, and the common people were displaced and starving. Lord Yuan of the state of Wei passed away, and his son Jia ascended to the throne. Time moved to the 18th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Renshen, which was 229 BC. The Qin military genius Wang Jian led the armies from Shangdi to strike at the Jingxing Pass, while Yang Duanhe commanded the forces from Heinai. The two armies converged in a final, massive offensive against Shao. On Shao's side, the world-renowned Li Mu and General Sima Shang took command, leading their troops in a desperate and resolute defense. Knowing Li Mu could not be defeated in a direct confrontation, Qin sent spies with vast amounts of gold to bribe Guo Kai, the king of Zhao's favorite sycophant. They induced him to slander Li Mu and Sima Shang, falsely claiming they were plotting to rebel against Shao. The foolish king of Shao believed the lies and ordered Zhao Song and the Qi general Yan Zhu to take over the command. Li Mu, knowing that changing generals mid-battle meant certain defeat, refused the suicidal order. Consequently, the king had him arrested and brutally executed, while also stripping Sima Shang of his rank. In the 19th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Gu Yu, which was 228 BC, the dust finally settled. With Li Mu dead, Wang Jian led the Qin army as if through an open field, utterly crushing the demoralized Zhao forces. He slew Zhao Song, while Yan Zhu fled in panic. The Qin army then captured the Zhou capital, Handan, and took King Qian prisoner. King Zhen of Qin personally traveled to Handan, the place of his birth. He issued an order to execute every single person who had grievances or feuds with his mother's family during his time there as a hostage. After redressing his personal grievances, King Zhen inspected Taiyuan and Shangdi before returning triumphantly to his capital, Xianying. Empress Dowager Zhaoji, the biological mother of King Zheng, also passed away in this year. Wang Jian stationed his victorious troops in the Zhongshan region, massing his army like a sharp blade pointed directly at the borders of the state of Yan. Prince Jia of Shao led over 100 surviving members of the royal clan in a hasty flight to the northern region of Dai, where he proclaimed himself the king of Dai. Following the fall of Shao, its former officials gradually flocked to Prince Jia. They joined forces with the Yan military and stationed their combined army in the Shanggu region. Upon the death of King Yu of Chu, the people installed his brother Hao as the new monarch. However, only 3 months later, Hao's half-brother Fu Chu launched a coup, murdered the new king, and seized the throne for himself. King Jinmin of Wei passed away, and his son Jia ascended the throne. He would become the final monarch of Wei, known as King Jia of Wei. Crown Prince Dan of Yan harbored a profound hatred for King Zhen of Qin due to the disrespect shown to him. Driven by a desire for vengeance, he sought the counsel of his tutor, Grand Mentor Zhu Wu. Grand Mentor Zhu Wu advised, "We should forge alliances with the remnants of the 3 Jin states to the west, unite with the powerful Qi and Chu to the south, and even reach an accord with the Xiongnu to the north, creating a global encirclement to jointly strategize against Qin." Prince Dan replied impatiently, "Your plan, Grand Mentor, consumes far too much time. Such a protracted process makes me heartsore and anxious. I fear I cannot wait another moment." Shortly thereafter, the Qin general Fan Yuqi committed an offense against the king and fled for his life to Yan. Prince Dan, disregarding the risks, welcomed him and provided him sanctuary within his own estate. Zhu Wu anxiously advised, "The king of Qin is inherently tyrannical and already harbors a simmering rage toward Yan, which is chilling enough. How much worse will it be when he learns that General Fan is being harbored here? This is akin to placing fresh meat on a path frequented by a starving tiger. I beg you, Prince, to swiftly dispatch General Fan to seek refuge among the Xiongnu in the north." Prince Dan replied with finality, "General Fan has no other refuge in all the world. He has entrusted his life to me. This is exactly the moment when I must protect him, even at the cost of my own life. please, speak no more of this and find another way. Zhu Wu lamented bitterly, to engage in perilous deeds while hoping for security, to manufacture catastrophe while hallucinating it as a blessing, this is the height of short-sightedness. To jeopardize the entire nation for the sake of a private bond with one man is nothing but accumulating resentment and fueling disaster, yet Prince Dan remained obstinate and refused to listen. Crown Prince Dan of Yan heard of the noble reputation of Jingku, a man from the state of Wei. He used humble words and prepared generous gifts to sincerely request an audience with him. He said to Jingku, now the mighty Qin has already captured the king of Han, mobilized troops to invade Chu in the south, and its military edge is pressing against Shao in the north. If Shao cannot withstand Qin's fierce assault, disaster will inevitably flow toward our state of Yan like a torrent. Yan is small and weak, exhausted by repeated wars. How can it possibly withstand the tiger like Qin? The various lords are now so cowed by Qin's might that they submit, and none dare speak of forming a vertical alliance to resist Qin anymore. My private plan may be humble, but I believe if we could truly obtain a peerless warrior to travel to Qin as an envoy, seize the king of Qin, and force him to return all the seized territories just as Chao Emo once did to Duke Huan of Qi, it would be a magnificent and perfect outcome. If kidnapping fails, then we shall assassinate him. While their great generals command heavy troops abroad, the heart of Qin will erupt in chaos, and the monarch and ministers will inevitably suspect each other. We can then seize this rare opportunity for the lords to reunite in alliance, and the destruction of Qin will be a certainty. I only beg that you, Master Jing, devote your full attention to this matter. Jingko, moved by the prince's sincerity and the weight of the request, solemnly gave his word. Thereupon, the prince settled Master Jing in the most prestigious guest quarters. Every day, the prince visited him personally, providing for Jingku with such exquisiteness and thoroughness that there was nothing he did not do to satisfy his every need. When the Qin general Wang Jian completely destroyed the state of Shao, Prince Dan was struck with terror upon hearing the news. Seeing the Qin army at his doorstep, he was desperate to dispatch Jingku to depart immediately. Jingku replied calmly, if I go now without any proof to win his trust, Qin will not allow me near. If I could truly obtain the head of General Fan and the map of Yan's fertile Dukong region to present to the king of Qin, he would surely be delighted to grant me an audience. Only then would I have the chance to fulfill my mission. The prince said with a troubled face, General Fan came to me because he was destitute and had no other refuge. I simply cannot bear to harm a friend who has turned to me in sincere submission. Jingku then went to see Fan Yuqi privately without the prince's knowledge, saying, Qin's treatment of you has been profoundly cruel to the extreme. Your parents and your entire clan have been ruthlessly slaughtered and enslaved by the king of Qin. Now it is rumored throughout the land that the king of Qin is offering a bounty of 1,000 catties of gold and a fief of 10,000 households for your head. Faced with this certain death, what do you intend to do? Upon hearing this, Fan Yuqi let out a long, heavy sigh and, with tears streaming down his face, asked in righteous indignation, since things have come to this, where do you suggest our plan for revenge should begin? Jingku proposed with a piercing gaze, I wish to obtain your head to present to the king of Qin. Seeing his greatest threat removed, he will surely be overjoyed and grant me a private audience. At that moment, I will seize his sleeve with my left hand and plunge a poisoned dagger into his chest with my right. Thus, your clan's massacre will be avenged, and the Shin of Yan being oppressed by mighty Qin will be cleansed. Fan Yuqi, his face contorted with intense hatred, cried out passionately, this is exactly what I have been gnashing my teeth and rotting my heart over, day and night. With that, he resolutely drew his sword and slit his own throat, offering his life for the sake of revenge. Upon hearing the news, Prince Dan rushed over in a panic and collapsed onto Fan Yuqi's body, weeping aloud. However, what was done could not be undone. Eventually, he had no choice but to use an exquisite wooden box to properly store the general's head. Prince Dan had previously searched the entire land and acquired an exceptionally sharp dagger. He ordered craftsmen to repeatedly quench and coat the blade with lethal poison, then tested it on living subjects. The poison was so potent that if even a single drop of blood was drawn, the person would drop dead instantly. Thereupon, Prince Dan prepared the travel essentials and formally dispatched Jingku on his mission. He appointed the famous young warrior of Yan, Qin Wuyang, as the second in command, ordering them to depart immediately for the peril-filled state of Qin. 启柔赵敦臧进昭阳作恶，凡28年。昭襄王52年丙午，公元前255年，河东守王姬作与诸侯通，弃世。婴侯日以不义，王临朝而叹，婴侯请其故。王曰：今武安君死，而政安平，王姬等皆叛，内无良将，而外多敌国，无事以忧。婴侯惧，不知所出。宴客蔡泽闻之，悉入秦，先使人宣言于婴侯曰：蔡泽，天下雄辩之士，彼见王，必困君而夺君之位。婴侯怒，使人召之。蔡泽见婴侯，礼又惧。婴侯不快，因让之曰：子宣言欲待我相，请闻其说。蔡泽曰：君何见之晚也？夫40之序，成功者去。君独不见夫秦之伤君，楚之无起，越之大夫种，何足怨与？婴侯谬曰：何为不可？此三子者，义之至也，忠之尽也。君子有杀身以成名，死无所恨。蔡泽曰：夫人立功，岂不期于成全邪？身名俱全者，上也；名可法而身死者，次也；名禄辱而身全者，下也。夫伤君、吴起、大夫种，其为人臣尽忠至公，则可怨矣。洪邀、周公，岂不义忠？且胜乎？三子之可怨，孰与洪邀、周公在？婴侯曰：善。蔡泽曰：然则君之主敦厚旧故，不备功臣，孰与孝公、楚王、越王？曰：谓之何如？蔡泽曰：君之功能，孰与三子？曰：不若。蔡泽曰：然则君身不退，患恐甚于三子矣。语曰：日中则移，月满则亏，进退盈缩，与时变化，圣人之道也。今君之愿，以仇而得以报，意欲治矣而无辩计，且为君威志。婴侯遂言以为上客，因见于王。王召于宇，大悦，拜为客卿。婴侯因谢并免。王心悦蔡泽计划，遂以为相国，则为相数月，免。楚春申君以荀卿为兰陵令。荀卿者，赵人，名况，常与林武君论兵于赵孝成王之前。王曰：请问兵要。林武君对曰：上得天时，下得地利，观敌之变动，后之发，先之至，此用兵之要术也。荀卿曰：不然。臣所闻古之道，凡用兵攻战之本，在乎益民。攻势不调，则义不能以终；六马不和，则造父不能以致远；士民不亲附，则汤武不能以必胜也。故善富民者，是乃善用兵者也。不，兵要在乎富民而已。林武君曰：不然。兵之所贵者势利也，所行者便诈也。善用兵者，感乎忧安，莫之所从出。孙吴用之，无敌于天下，岂必待富民哉？荀卿曰：不然。臣之所道，人人之兵，王者之治也。君之所贵，权谋势利也。人人之兵，不可诈也。彼可诈者，怠慢者也，陆谈者也，君臣上下之间，哗然有离得者也。故以劫诈劫，有巧拙有幸焉。以劫诈摇，辟之以卵投石，以指饶肺，若覆水火，入燕郊美耳。故人人之兵，上下一心，三军同力。臣之于君也，下之于上也。若子之弑父，弟之弑兄，若手臂之汉头目而负兄父也。诈而袭之，与先惊而后击之，异也。且人人用10里之国，则将有100里之听；用100里之国，则将有1000里之听；用1000里之国，则将有4海之听。必将聪明警戒，合复而一。故人人之兵，聚则成卒，散则成列，言则若莫耶之长刃，应之者断，对则若莫耶之利锋，当之者溃。环居而方止，则若盘石然，触之者绞摧而退耳。且夫报国之君，将谁与治哉？彼其所与治者，必其民也。其民之亲，我欢若父母；其好，我分若娇兰。彼反故。其上则若酌情，若仇。人之情，虽节直，其有肯为其所恶，贼其所好者哉？是有使人之子孙自贼其父母也。彼必将来告之，夫又何可诈也？故人人用国日明，诸侯先顺者安，后顺者危，敌之者削，反之者亡。是曰：武王宰发，有前丙月，如火烈烈，则莫我敢恶，此之谓也。孝成王林武君曰：善。请问王者之兵，涉何道，何行而可？荀卿曰：凡君贤者，其国治， 君不能者，其国乱；隆里贵义者，其国治；简礼见义者，其国乱。治者强，乱者弱，是强弱之本也。上足养则下可用也，上不足养则下不可用也。下可用则强，下不可用则弱，是强弱之常也。好事者强，不好事者弱；爱民者强，不爱民者弱；政令信者强，政令不信者弱；重用兵者强，轻用兵者弱；权处一者强，权处二者弱，是强弱之常也。其人隆计机，其计也；得一手者，则赐赎资金，无本赏矣。事是小敌粹，则偷可用也；是大敌坚，则患焉离耳。若非鸟然，清策反复无日，是亡国之兵也。兵莫若是矣，是其去令士庸而战之极矣。谓是之。五卒，以度取之，依3属之甲，操10、20之弩，副食50个，置戈其上，冠胄带剑，营2日之粮，日中而驱100里，终是则复其户，立其田宅。是其气力数年而衰，而复力未可夺也。改造则不易周也，是故地虽大，其税必寡，是危国之兵也。秦人，其生民也狭隘，其使民也酷烈，节之以势，引之以恶，扭之以庆赏，秋之以刑法，使民所以要立于上者，非斗无有也。是以公赏相长，无家守而立5家，是最为众强长久之道。故四世有胜，非幸也，属也。故其之计机，不可以御魏之5卒；魏之5卒，不可以御秦之锐士；秦之锐士，不可以当桓；文之节制，文之节制，不可以当汤；武之仁义，有欲之者，若以骄傲投食焉。监视属国者，皆干赏倒立之兵也，拥屠欲卖之道也，未有贵上安置其节之礼也。诸侯有能微妙之以节，则坐而兼待之耳。故朝言暮选，龙视诈，上功利，是见之也。礼义教化，是其之也。故以诈御诈，有巧捉焉；以诈御其，辟之有以追刀堕泰山也。故汤武之诸桀，纣也，拱义指挥，而强暴之国莫不驱使；诸桀、纣若诸毒夫。故泰。是曰：毒夫纣，此之谓也。故兵大齐则治天下，小齐则治邻敌。若服朝言暮选，龙视诈，上功利之兵，则胜不胜无常，待息待张，待存待亡，相为雌雄耳。夫士之谓道兵，君子不有也。孝成王临武君曰：善。请问为将。荀卿曰：知莫大乎弃矣，行莫大乎无过，是莫大乎无悔。是至无悔而止矣，不可避也。故治好政令，欲言以威，庆赏刑罚，欲避以信，处设收藏，欲周以固，袭举进退，欲安以众，欲急以速，窥敌官变，欲前以身，欲武以参，欲敌决战，必行无所明，无形无所疑。夫士之谓六硕。无欲将而恶废，无待胜而忘败，无威内而轻外，无见其利而不顾其害，凡虑事欲熟而用才欲泰，夫士之谓五权。将所以不受命于主有3：可杀而不可使楚不完，可杀而不可使击不胜，可杀而不可使其百姓，夫士之谓3治。凡受命于主而行3军，3军既定，百官得序，群务皆正，则主不能喜，敌不能怒，夫士之谓治臣。欲避先事而身之以敬，慎终如始，始终如一，夫士之谓大吉。凡百事之成也必在敬之，其败也必在慢之。故敬胜待则吉，待胜敬则灭，既胜欲则从，欲胜忌则凶。战如守，行如战，有功如信。敬谋无旷，敬事无旷，敬力无旷，敬重无旷，敬敌无旷，夫士之谓无旷。慎行此6术5权3治，而处之以恭敬无旷，夫士之谓天下之将，则通于神明矣。临武君曰：善。请问王者之君制。荀卿曰：将死骨，欲死沛，百利死直，是大夫死行列。闻鼓声而进，闻金声而退。顺命为上，有功次之。令不进而进，犹令不退而退也，其罪为君。不杀老弱，不列禾稼，服者不擒，革者不赦，奔命者不获。凡诛，非诛其百姓也，诛其乱百姓者也。百姓有害其贼，则是一贼也。以故顺任者生，速任者死，奔命者共。微子开封于宋，曹处垄断于君，伤之服民，所以养生之者无益周人。故近者歌讴而乐之，远者桀绝而驱之。无忧闲僻陋之国，莫不驱使而安乐之。四海之内若一家，通达之属莫不从服，夫士之谓人师。是曰：自西自东， 自南自北，无私不服，此之谓也。王者有诸而无。战，城守不攻，兵革不击，敌上下相喜则庆之，不屠城，不前军，不留众，师不越使，故乱者乐其政，不安其上，欲其治也。临武君曰：善。陈嚣问荀卿曰：先生议兵，常以仁义为本，仁者爱人，义者循礼，然则又何以兵为？凡所谓有兵者，为争夺也。荀卿曰：非汝所知也。彼仁者爱人，爱人，故恶人之害之也；义者循礼，循礼，故恶人之乱之也。彼兵者，所以尽暴除害也，非争夺也。燕孝王薨，子喜立，周闵东王。秦人取其宝器，迁西周公于淡湖之据。楚人迁鲁于莒而取其地。昭襄王53年，丁未，公元前254年，纠伐魏，取吴城。韩王入朝，魏举国听令。昭襄王54年，戊申，公元前253年，王交见上帝于雍。楚迁于巨阳。昭襄王55年，己酉，公元前252年，魏怀军朝于魏，魏人执而杀之，更立其地，是为元君。元君，魏续也。昭襄王56年，庚戌，公元前251年秋，王薨，孝文王立，尊唐八子为唐太后，以子楚为太子。赵人奉子楚妻子归之。韩王崔牒入吊祠。燕王喜使立父曰欢于赵，以500金为赵王酒。反而言于燕王曰：赵壮者皆死长平，其孤未壮，可伐也。王赵昌国君乐贤问之，对曰：赵四战之国，其民习兵，不可。王曰：吾以武而伐一。对曰：不可。王怒，群臣皆以为可，乃发2000城，立复江而攻号，轻秦攻代。将取曰：与人通关曰交，以500金引人之王，使者报而攻之，不降，失必无功。王不听，自将偏军随之。将取引王之寿，王以足阻之。将取泣曰：臣非自为，为王也。燕师至宋子，赵廉颇为将，逆击之，败立复于号，败轻秦，乐成于代，追北500余里，遂为燕。燕人请和，赵人曰：必令将渠处和。燕王以将渠为相而处和，赵师乃戒去。赵平原君卒。秦孝文王，孝文王元年，辛亥，公元前250年冬10月，乙亥，王即位，3日薨。子楚立，是为庄襄王，尊华阳夫人为华阳太后，夏姬为夏太后。燕将攻其聊城，拔之，或赠之燕王，燕将保聊城，不敢归。其田单攻之，遂于不下。鲁仲连乃为书，曰：之时以射城中，夷燕将，为臣立害曰：为攻计者，不归燕则归弃。今独守孤城，其兵日益，而燕救不至，将何为乎？燕将见书，弃3日，犹豫不能自决，欲归燕，已有隙，欲将其所杀戮于其甚众，恐以向而后。见如，喟然叹曰：与人任我，宁我自任。遂自杀。聊城乱，田单克聊城，归，言鲁仲连于齐王，欲绝之。仲连逃至海上，曰：吾与富贵而屈于人，宁贫贱而轻视四至焉。魏安离王问天下之高士于子顺，子顺曰：是无其人也，亦可以为赐其鲁仲连乎？王曰：鲁仲连强作之者，非体自然也。子顺曰：人皆作之，作之不止，乃成君子；作之不变，习于体成，习于体成，则自然也。秦庄襄王，庄襄王元年，壬子，公元前249年，吕不韦为相国。东周军为诸侯谋伐秦，王使相国率师讨灭之，迁东周军于阳人据。周既不嗣。周比王，凡有7邑：河南、洛阳、古城、平阴、偃师、巩、沟氏。以河南、洛阳10万户封相国不韦为文信侯。蒙骜伐韩，取成皋、荥阳，出至三川郡。楚灭鲁，迁鲁请公于卞，为家人。庄襄王2年，癸丑，公元前248年，日有食之。蒙骜伐赵，定太原，取于次、郎孟等37城。楚春申君言于楚王曰：淮北地边于齐，其事急，请以为郡而封于江东。楚王许之。春申君因城无故须，以为都邑，攻势极盛。庄襄王3年，甲寅，公元前247年，王和攻上党诸城，西拔之，出至太原郡。蒙骜率师伐魏，取高都，即魏师硕败，魏王患之，乃使人请信陵君于赵。 信陵君未得罪，不肯还，见门下曰：“有敢为魏使通者死，宾客莫敢见。”毛公、薛公见信陵君曰：“公子所以重于诸侯者，徒以有位也。今魏及而公子不许，一旦秦人克大梁，夷先王之宗庙，公子当何面目立天下乎？”语未足，信陵君色变，去驾韩魏。魏王持信陵君而泣，以为上将军。信陵君使人求援于诸侯，诸侯闻信陵君复为魏将，皆遣兵救魏。信陵君率5国之师败蒙骜于河外，蒙骜遁走。信陵君追至函谷关，抑之而还。安陵人缩高之子事于秦，秦使之守管。信陵君攻之不下，使人谓安陵君曰：“君其遣缩高，吾将视之以5大夫，使为直节位。”安陵君曰：“安陵，小国也，不能必使其民。”使者自往请之，使力导使者至缩高之所。使者致信陵君之命，缩高曰：“君之姓高也，将使高公管也。夫妇公子守，人之孝也，见臣而下，是备主也。父教子备，亦非君之所喜，敢在拜此。”使者以报信陵君。信陵君大怒，遣使之安陵君所曰：“安陵之地，亦犹魏也。今吾公管而不下，则秦兵及我，社稷必危矣。愿君生数缩高而治之。若君弗治，吾计将发10万之师，以造安陵之城下。”安陵君曰：“吾先君承侯寿赵襄王以守此城也，首受太府之县，县之上篇曰：‘子弑父，臣弑君，有常不赦。国虽大，赦将成王子不得与焉。今缩高辞大位，以全父子之意，而君曰必生治之，是使我负襄王之诏而废太府之县也，虽死终不敢行。’缩高闻之曰：‘信陵君为人悍猛而自用，此辞反必为国祸。吾以全己，无为人臣之意矣，岂可使吾君有位患乎？’乃知使者之赦，闻景而死。信陵君闻之，缟素辟舍，使使者谢安陵君曰：‘吾既小人也，困于思虑，失信于君，请再拜辞罪。’王使人行万金于魏以监信陵君，求得晋比克，另说魏王曰：‘公子王在外10年矣，今复为将，诸侯皆属，天下图闻信陵君而不闻魏王矣。’王又说使人贺信陵君，得为魏王位也。魏王日闻其悔，不能不信，乃使人代信陵君将兵。信陵君自知在以毁废，乃谢病不朝，日夜以酒色自娱，凡4岁而卒。韩王往调，其子荣之，以告子顺。子顺曰：‘必辞之以礼。邻国君调，君为之主，今君不命子，则子无所受韩君也。’其子辞之。5月，丙午，王薨。太子正立，生13年矣，国事皆委于文信侯，号称仲。父晋阳反。始皇帝上元年乙卯，公元前246年，蒙骜姬定制。韩愈皮秦人，使吴东伐，乃使水工郑国围歼于秦，凿泾水自众山为渠，并北山东筑洛，终作而绝。秦人欲杀之。郑国曰：‘臣为韩言数年之命，然渠成，亦秦万世之利也。’乃使卒为之。筑田鄂之水，盖细鲁之地4万余顷，收皆亩1中，关中尤氏亦富饶。始皇帝上2年丙辰，公元前245年，庖公将卒公卷，斩首3万。赵以廉颇为假相国，伐魏，取樊阳。赵孝成王薨，子悼襄王立，使武襄君乐成代廉颇。廉颇怒，攻武襄君，武襄君走，廉颇出奔魏。久之，魏不能信用。师硕困于秦，赵王私附的廉颇，廉颇亦私附用于赵。赵王使使者，是廉颇尚可用否？廉颇之仇，郭开多与使者金，令毁之。廉颇见使者，一饭斗米，肉10斤，备甲上马，以示可用。使者还报曰：“廉将军虽老，尚善饭，然与臣坐，请至3仪时矣。”赵王以为老，遂不召。楚人因使迎之。廉颇亦为楚将，无功，曰：“我私用赵人。”卒死于寿春。始皇帝上3年丁巳，公元前244年，大饥。蒙骜伐韩，取12城。赵王以李牧为将，伐燕，取5岁，方城。李牧者，赵之北边良将也，常居代，雁门被匈奴，以便夷智力，士卒皆输入莫府，为士卒费，日积属牛享事，袭其舍，仅烽火，多间谍，违曰：“匈奴即入道，即入收宝，有敢不入者斩。”匈奴每入， 烽火紧，折入收宝不战。如是数岁，亦不亡师。匈奴皆以为妾，虽赵边兵亦以为吴将妾。赵王让之，李牧如故。王怒，使他人代之。遂于屡出战，不利，多失亡，边不得田处。王复请李牧，李牧杜门，称病不出。王强启之，李牧曰：必用臣。臣如前，乃敢奉令。王许之。李牧至边，如曰：匈奴数岁无所得，终以为妾。边时日得赏赐而不用，皆愿一战。于是乃具选车得1300乘，选骑得13000匹，百金之士5万人，购者10万人，西乐袭战，大纵畜牧，人民满也。匈奴小入，阳北不胜，以数十人委之。单于闻之，大率众来入。李牧多为其臣，张所又以击之，大破之，杀匈奴10余万骑，灭依瞻兰，破东湖，降临湖。单于奔走，10余岁不敢进赵边。先是时，天下官代之国戚，而三国边于戎狄。秦自陇以西有绵诸、滚戎、翟、支戎、齐、梁、荆；戚之北有义渠、大利、乌氏、曲兖之戎，而赵北有临湖、楼烦之戎，燕北有东湖、山戎，各分散居溪谷，自有军常，往往而聚者100有余戎，然莫能相依。其后义渠筑城郭以自守，而秦稍蚕食之，至惠王遂拔义渠25城。昭王之时，宣太后又义渠王，杀诸甘泉，遂发兵伐义渠，灭之，始于陇西、北地、上郡筑长城以拒胡。赵武灵王北破临湖、楼烦，筑长城，自带并阴山下，至高阙为塞，而至云中、雁门、代郡。其后燕将秦开围至于湖，湖甚信之，归而袭破东湖，东湖却1000余里。燕亦筑长城，自造阳至襄平，至上谷、渔阳、右北平、辽东郡以拒湖。即战国之末，而匈奴始大。始皇帝上4年戊午，公元前243年春，蒙骜伐魏，曲阳，有鬼。3月，君罢。秦质子归自赵，赵太子出归国。7月，黄邑，令百姓纳粟迁难，拜爵邑祭。魏安离王薨，子景敏王立。始皇帝上5年即位，公元前242年，蒙骜伐魏，取酸枣、燕、须、长平、雍丘、山阳等20城，出至东郡。初，据心在赵与庞宣善，以而事焉。燕王见赵数困于秦，连颇去而庞宣为将，欲因其避而攻之，问于据心，对曰：庞宣亦于耳。燕王使据心将而伐赵。赵庞宣遇之，杀据心，取燕12万。诸侯患秦攻伐吴以事。始皇帝上6年庚申，公元前241年楚，赵、魏、韩、魏合从以伐秦，楚王为从长，春申君用事，取寿陵。至函谷，秦师出，五国之师皆败走。楚王以救春申君，春申君以此一书。关津人朱英谓春申君曰：人皆以楚为强，君用之而弱。其余应不然。先君时，秦善楚20年而不攻楚，何也？秦于免恶之色而攻楚，不便；假道于两州，备韩、魏而攻楚，不可。今则不然。魏旦穆王不能爱许、鄢陵，魏割以与秦，秦兵去陈160里。陈之所观者，见秦、楚之日斗也。楚于是去陈，喜寿春，命曰郢。春申君就封于吴，行乡试。秦拔魏朝歌，即魏濮阳。魏元君率其支属喜居野王，阻其山以保卫之河内。始皇帝上7年辛酉，公元前240年，伐魏，取节。夏太后薨，蒙骜卒。始皇帝上8年壬戌，公元前239年，魏与赵业。韩桓惠王薨，子安立。始皇帝上9年癸亥，公元前238年，伐魏，取元、鄱。夏4月，韩民有冻死者。王肃雍。即有王冠、代建。杨端和伐魏，取偃氏。初，王即位，年少，太后时与文信侯私通。王义壮，文信侯恐事教，或及己，乃诈以舍人嫪毐为患者，进于太后。太后幸之，生2子，封毐为长信侯，以太原为矮国，政事皆决于毐，克求为矮舍人者甚众。王左右由于毐争言者，告毐实非患者，王下立治毐。毐惧，矫王玉玺发兵，欲攻其年宫为乱。王使相国昌平君、昌文君发卒攻毐，战咸阳，斩首数百，毐败走，获之。秋9月， 遗爱三族，当与皆车裂灭宗，涉人最轻者习属，凡4000余家。迁太后于雍复阳宫，杀其2子。下令曰：敢以太后事见者，戮而杀之，断其4肢，击之阙下。死者27人。其客茅交上夜请见。王使谓之曰：若不见夫击阙下者邪？对曰：臣闻天有28宿，今死者27人，臣之来故欲满其数耳。臣非为死者也。使者走入白之。茅交一子同使者尽负其衣物而逃亡。王大怒曰：是人也，故来犯吾，去召或烹之，是安得击阙下哉？王按见怒而坐，口正莫出。使者召之入，茅交徐行至前，在拜谒起，称曰：臣闻有生者不会死，有国者不会亡。会死者不可以得生，会亡者不可以得存。死生存亡，圣主所欲即闻也，陛下欲闻之乎？王曰：何谓也？茅交曰：陛下有狂悖之行，不自知邪？车裂甲父，囊扑2弟，千亩于雍，残戮见事，桀纣之行，不至于是矣。令天下闻之，尽瓦解，无向秦者，臣妾为陛下威制。臣言已矣。乃解衣服至。王下殿，手自接之曰：先生起就衣，今愿受事。乃爵之上卿。王自驾，须走方，往迎太后，归于咸阳，复为母子如初。楚考烈王无子，春申君患之，求妇人遗子者甚众，尽之，卒无子。赵人李元池，其妹欲尽诸楚王，闻其不遗子，恐久无宠，乃求为春申君舍人，已而夜归，故失妻而还。春申君问之，李元曰：齐王使人求臣之妹，与其使者饮，故失妻。春申君曰：聘入乎？曰：未也。春申君遂纳之。继而有申、李元使。其妹说春申君曰：楚王贵姓君，虽兄弟不如也。今君相楚20余年而亡无子，及100岁后将更立兄弟，彼亦各贵其故所亲，君又安得常保此宠乎？非徒然也。君贵用事久，多失礼于王之兄弟，兄弟利，或且极深矣。今妾有身而人莫知，妾幸君未久，诚以君之重，尽妾于王，王必幸之。妾赖天而有难，则是君之子为王也。楚国尽可得，孰与身临不测之祸哉？春申君大然之，乃出李元妹，谨赦而言诛楚王。王召入，幸之，遂生男，立为太子。李元妹为王后，李元亦贵用事，而恐春申君泄其语，阴阳死事，欲杀春申君以灭口。国人颇有知之者。楚王病，朱婴谓春申君曰：是有无妄之福，亦有无妄之祸。今君处无妄之事，是无妄之主，安可以无无妄之人乎？春申君曰：何谓无妄之福？曰：君相处20余年矣，虽名相国，其实王也。王今病，但目薨而君相右主，因而当国，王长而反正，不及遂南面称孤，此所谓无妄之福也。何谓无妄之祸？曰：李元不治国而君之仇也，不畏兵而养死视之。日久矣，王薨，李元必先入，据权而杀君以灭口，此所谓无妄之祸也。何谓无妄之人？曰：君至陈郎中，王薨，李元先入，臣为君杀之，此所谓无妄之人也。春申君曰：足下治之。李元弱人也，仆又善治，且何至此？朱婴之言不用，惧而亡去。后17日，楚王薨，李元果先入，伏死士于棘门之内。春申君入，死士瑕刺之，投其首于棘门之外。于是使吏尽捕诛春申君之家。太子立，是为幽王。养子法言曰：或问信陵、平原、孟尝、春申异乎？曰：上失其政，奸臣窃国命，何其异乎？王以文信侯奉先王功大，不忍诛。始皇帝上10年，甲子，公元前237年冬10月，文信侯免相，出救国。宗室大臣议曰：诸侯人来事者，皆为其主游见耳，请一切逐之。于是大所逐客。客卿楚人李斯亦在逐中行，且上书曰：西穆公求事，西取由于于荣，东得百里，西于渊，迎简书于宋，求批报，公孙之于晋，并国20，遂罢西戎。孝公用商鞅之法，诸侯亲服，至精至强。惠王用张仪之计，散6国之从，使之事秦。昭王得范雎，强宫室，堵司门。此4君者， 皆以克之功。由此观之，克何负于秦哉？肤色、乐、诛、欲不产于秦，而王服欲者众，取人则不然，不问可否，不论曲直，非秦者去，为克者逐。是所重者在乎色、乐、诛、欲，而所轻者在乎人民也。臣闻泰山不让土壤，故能成其大；河海不择细流，故能就其深；王者不却众数，故能明其德。此五帝三王之所以无敌也。今乃弃黔首以资敌国，却宾客以业诸侯，所谓借寇兵而击盗粮者也。王乃召李斯，复其官，除逐客之令。李斯至离邑而还。王卒用李斯之谋，因遣便是积金欲游说诸侯，诸侯明示可下，以财者后宜节之，不肯者利剑刺之，离其君臣之计，然后使良将随其后，数年之中足兼天下。始皇帝上11年乙丑，公元前236年，赵人伐燕，取黎阳，兵未罢，将军王翦、还以、杨端和伐赵，攻邺，取9城。王翦攻豫宇、劳阳，还以取邺、安阳。赵悼襄王薨，子幽谋王千立，其母畅也，避于悼襄王。悼襄王废嫡子家而立之。千素以无行文于国。文信侯救国遂于，诸侯宾客使者相望于道，请之。王恐其为变，乃赐文信侯书曰：君何功于秦？封君河南，食10万户。何亲于秦？号称重父。其与家属袭楚属。文信侯自知稍亲，恐诛。始皇帝上12年丙寅，公元前235年，文信侯引镇死，妾葬。其舍人邻者，皆逐迁之。且曰：自今以来，操国事不道如嫪毐，不为者，及其门，是此。杨子法言曰：或问吕不为其志矣乎？以人亦惑。曰：谁谓不为？智者于以国一宗。吕不为之道，川渝之雄乎？川渝也者，无见丹石矣，未见洛阳也。自6月不雨，至于8月，发4郡兵驻卫伐楚。始皇帝上13年丁卯，公元前234年，还以伐赵，败赵，将护者于平阳，斩首10万，杀护者。赵王以李牧为大将军，复战于宜安，肥下，秦师败绩，还以奔还。赵封李牧为武安君。始皇帝上14年戊辰，公元前233年，还以伐赵，取宜安、平阳5城。韩王纳帝孝喜，请为藩臣，使韩非来聘。韩非者，韩之诸公子也，善行明法术之学。见韩之削弱，硕以书见韩王，王不能用。于是韩非及治国，不务求人任贤，反举服淫之度，而加之公实之上，宽则宠名誉之人，急则用借纣之事，所养非所用非所养。卑廉直不容于邪枉之臣，官王者得失之变，作孤愤、五度、内外处、说邻、税南56篇，10余万言。王闻其贤，欲见之。非谓韩使于秦，因上书说王曰：今秦地方数千里，失民100万，号令赏罚，天下不如。臣昧死愿望见大王，言所以破天下从之计。大王诚听臣说，一举而天下之从不破，赵不举，韩不亡，荆、魏不臣，齐、燕不侵，霸王之名不成，四邻诸侯不朝。大王斩臣以殉国，以戒为王谋不忠者也。王悦之，未任用。李斯及之，曰：韩非，韩之诸公子也。今欲并诸侯，非终为韩不为秦，此人情也。今王不用，又留而归之，此自宜患也。不如以法诛之。王以为然，下令治非。李斯使人疑非要，令早自杀。韩非欲自陈，不得见。王后悔，使射之，非已死矣。杨子法言曰：或问韩非作税难之书，而卒死乎？说难，敢问何反也？曰：税难，盖其所以死乎？曰：何也？君子以礼动，以义止，合则进，否则退，却乎不忧其不和也。夫说人而忧其不和，则亦无所不至矣。或曰：非忧说之不和，非邪？曰：说不由道，忧也；由道而不和，非忧也。陈光曰：臣闻君子亲其亲以及人之亲，爱其国以及人之国，是以功大名美而享有百夫也。今非为秦化谋，而手欲复其宗国，以受其言，罪故不容于死矣，吾足悯哉。始皇帝上15年己巳，公元前232年，王大兴师伐赵，义军抵邺，义军抵太原，取郎孟、藩吴，欲李牧而还。 初，燕太子丹常至于赵，与王善。王即位，丹为至于秦，王不理燕。丹怒，王归。始皇帝上16年庚午，公元前231年，韩献南阳地。9月，发卒受帝于韩。为人献帝。代地震，自乐徐以西，北至平阴，台屋墙垣太半坏，地撤东西130步。始皇帝上17年辛未，公元前230年，内史圣灭韩，鲁韩王安，以其弟至颍川郡。华阳太后薨。赵大基。魏元君薨，子角立。始皇帝上18年壬申，公元前229年，王翦将上帝兵下井陉，端河江河内兵共伐赵。赵李牧，司马尚遇之。秦人多与赵王避陈郭开金，使毁木及上，言其欲反。赵王使赵聪及其将严拒待之。李牧不受命，赵人捕而杀之，废司马尚。始皇帝上19年癸酉，公元前228年。王翦击赵军，大破之，杀赵聪，严拒王，遂克邯郸，虏赵王谦。王如邯郸，故与母家有仇怨者，皆杀之。还，从太原，上郡归。太后薨。王翦屯中山以临燕。赵公子加率其宗族100人奔代，自立为代王。赵之王，大夫稍稍归之，与燕合兵，军上谷。楚幽王薨，国人立其弟好。3月，郝树兄复除杀之，自立。魏景敏王薨，子贾立。燕太子丹愿王，欲报之，以问其父居武。居武请西约3晋，南连齐、楚，北构匈奴以屠秦。太子曰：太傅之计，旷日弥久，令人心昏然，恐不能虚也。请之。将军樊於期得罪王之宴，太子受而舍之。居武谏曰：夫以秦王之暴而激怒于燕，足为寒心，又况闻樊将军之所在乎？是魏尾肉当饿虎之息也。愿太子即遣樊将军入匈奴。太子曰：樊将军穷困于天下，归身于丹，是故丹命足之。时也，愿更虑之。居武曰：夫行危以求安，造祸以为福，既遣而怨深，乃廉洁一人之后交，不顾国家之大害，所谓自怨而助祸矣。太子不听。太子闻魏人荆轲之贤，卑辞厚礼而请见之。魏轲曰：今秦以鲁韩王，又举兵南伐楚，北临赵。赵不能知秦，则祸必至于燕。燕小弱，硕困于兵，何足以当秦？诸侯服秦，莫敢合纵。丹之思计语，以为承得天下之勇士始于秦，结秦王，使其反诸侯亲地。若曹沫之与齐桓公，则大善矣，则不可，因而刺杀之。彼大将善兵于外，而内有乱，则君臣相疑，以其间诸侯得合纵，其破秦必矣。为荆卿刘义也。荆轲许之。于是设荆卿于上舍，太子日造门下，所以奉养荆轲，无所不至。及王翦灭赵，太子闻之惧，欲遣荆轲行。荆轲曰：今行而无信，则秦未可亲也。承得樊将军守与燕都抗之地图，奉献秦王，秦王必说谏臣，臣乃有以报。太子曰：樊将军穷困来归丹，丹不仁也。荆轲乃私见樊於期曰：秦之欲将军，可为深矣。父母宗族皆为陆墨。今闻构将军守，金千金，10000家，将奈。贺。于其太息流涕曰：即将安出？荆卿曰：愿得将军之手以献秦王，秦王必喜而见臣。臣左手把其袖，右手振其胸，则将军之仇报而燕建陵之溃除矣。樊於期曰：此臣之日夜切齿抚心也。遂自刎。太子闻之，奔往伏哭，然以无奈何，遂以韩胜其首。太子欲求天下之力匕首，使公以药淬之，以示人血如履，人无不立死者。乃装为遣荆轲，以燕勇士秦武阳为之父，使入秦。此为播放列表合集系列视频之一，同款电子书。Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. More videos available in the playlist collections. Matching ebook included. If you have any suggestions, feel free to let me know. 谢谢您点赞、订阅、关注，欢迎您的雅正。